Super League is going to present you with the top 24 athletes on the planet. The fittest men on earth, racing for one of the biggest prize purses ever seen in triathlon history.
The distances are all different, the formats are different, it's kind of anyone's game.
Testing an athlete's ability to swim, bike and run. Pain is an understatement. What these men are going to suffer on this course will be amazing to witness.
It's going to be really tough. I mean, not just the elements, obviously the hills, humidity.
No one's really safe out there in these kind of conditions.
The mindset is going to be prepared for pain.
For sure it's going to be tough, that's all we know. We just try to go as hard as we can and try to beat the others.
It's going to be new and it's going to be exciting.
Everyone will enjoy it, have a great time, the racing will be good and people enjoy watching it.
It is the Champions League of triathlon.
Welcome to Hamilton Island in the heart of the Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Queensland, Australia. And for this weekend, the heart of the triathlon world with the launch of Super League Triathlon. Alongside me, Emma Frodino and Chris McCormack. Chris, how good is this?
Oh, it's been a long time coming. It's going to be absolutely epic. I can't wait to see the action get underway.
Well, the conditions are certainly extreme and I cannot wait to see the athletes battle it out this afternoon.
There is going to be plenty to look forward to over the next 3 days. Let's have a look at how it's all going to play out. Swim. Bike. Run. That's triathlon. But what if it was more than that? What if it was faster, more tactical, more variable, more painful? What if it was Super League? Sure, this is triathlon, but it's also something you have never seen before. Races won as much in the mind as they are in the legs. New formats, new faces, new destinations, the same bitter rivals. Only the very best have been awarded Super League contracts. Dual Olympic gold medalist Alistair Brownlee is here.
All the 3 days are different and something that I've never done before.
As is five-time world champ Javier Gomez.
It's a totally new format. For sure it's going to be tough, that's all we know.
And current ITU world title holder Mario Mola.
The course looks very nice but very tough as well.
Add in specialists from across the multi-sport arena and a host of young Aussies intent on making their mark on home soil.
It's going to be new and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be tough.
Today, it's the triple mix. 3 stages mixing up the order of disciplines. Want to swim, bike, run? Okay. But then you can run, bike, swim and bike, swim, run. And we'll give you 10 minutes rest between each. So, good luck with that. Tomorrow, the equaliser, a 6-kilometre time trial on the bike with every second lost to be paid in the afternoon's 5-leg sprint. And Sunday, well, you'd better bring your tactics for the Eliminator. Again, 3 stages, but this time it's keep up or go home.
These guys don't do anything in second gear. It'll be flat out, start to finish. It'll be everything to keep you entertained.
The stars are worried and they have every right to be. Someone will leave Hamilton Island $100,000 richer, and it's time to find out who.
I don't know if you two got goosebumps just then, but just watching that back, I certainly did. Chris, you're the founder. You've been in this since the beginning. Exactly how big is this? Is it bigger than you imagined at the beginning when this idea came into your head?
I have to pinch myself. It's finally here. It's been a long, long time coming. It's enormous, really, for the sport. This is the best athletes in the sport of triathlon. It's wonderful to have them here in my home country, Australia, and it's going to be absolutely epic racing.
Emma, I kind of feel for you a little bit. You missed the Formula One racing back in the 90s and the early 2000s. Then you casually won a gold medal, and now this has happened. So in a way, you've missed out.
Look, I definitely feel like, you know, I'm getting those pre-race nerves, those goosebumps, and the excitement is building. And look, this is something new for everyone, and even for myself, it definitely contemplates a comeback for me.
Let's talk about the established order. We see in ITU racing, we see in all the different formats of racing in which these guys participate, the same guys rising to the top all the time. But I feel like in the formats that you've created, Chris, you've created things that are going to mix up that order, and I'm kind of worried for the top guys.
You should be, because that's what Super League's all about. We've really tightened everything up. These courses are very dynamic. It's very, very short. So it gives the opportunity to these younger athletes, the opportunists, to take a chance and win these things. And these guys haven't been beaten up on that conventional circuit by the Javier Gomez's, the Alistair Brownlees. So in particular, I like a young kid, Jacob Birtwistle, young Tasmanian boy. He's an under-23 world champion, super fast. Very, very much of a risk taker, and he could win this thing.
Speaking of super fast risk takers, we've got one down in transition. Robbie McEwen will be sticking the camera and the microphone in places where it probably shouldn't be. Robbie, where are you right now?
Well, guys, I'm down on the finish line, and I tell you what, the tension, you could cut it with a knife. The athletes, they've been warming up. They're getting all their preparations finalised for this race, but also read on their faces a certain level of uncertainty. And they know the drill in race 1, swim, bike, run, like they always do. But they're thinking about race 2 and race 3 in this triple mix. I sat in on the briefing, and guys were still trying to get their heads around how they're going to tackle this and to get the right order in the right time. But the crowds are also starting to come out. A lot of people have been hiding in the air conditioning because, let's face it, everyone knows how hot it is up here on Hamilton Island. But it's absolutely beautiful. The crowds are out in force. The sun is shining like we want, but it is so hot. That will also play a factor in this race.
Hey, Robbie, you had a good chance to look at the bike course. What are your thoughts on just how difficult it is?
Oh, Macca, I did go and ride around the bike course, and there's two things that really stick out for me on that course. The steep uphill, straight out of transition, a right-hand turn, 15% uphill climb for about 450 metres, a flat section up to the roundabout to make a U-turn, and then it's the death-defying section of this bike course. They dive downhill back to the marina. They'll be hitting 75 kilometres an hour. Just wonder if they can pull it up when they hit the dismount line to get onto the run leg. It's going to be mad.
I'm sure you will be there, Robbie. We'll be back in touch with you as we count down to the triple mix. Let's take a look now at the 3 formats and how it's all going to play out across the 3 days. The triple mix, 3 stages, as we say, time bonuses. We're going to talk about them as we get a little closer, and the lowest accrued time wins the triple mix. The equaliser tomorrow, a time trial in the morning, and then the pursuit, swim, run, swim, bike, run in the afternoon. You have to pay all the time you've lost in that morning's TT. And the eliminator, 3 rounds again. But if you finish towards the back of the pack, you are going home early, a little bit like Formula 1 qualifying. So it's going to be very, very interesting and very tough. Now, top athletes, 24 of the fittest. We've got young guns, we've got the established order. We're going to take a look now at some of the maybe top 4 or 5 guys that you need to watch out for, especially in the triple mix.
To be the best, you have to beat the best. The best sprinters, the best Ironmen, the best Olympic distance warriors. 24 of the planet's fittest fill the Super League triathlon roster. None more well-known than 2-time Olympic champion Alistair Brownlee. Refreshed and ready for a new challenge.
Obviously, it's the first race of my year, which is an exciting thing in itself. It's exciting to be here in Hamilton Island. Even the place is just what a brilliant place to come. Racing over the 3 days is a new thing for me, racing different formats, something that I've never done before.
The 28-year-old from the misty hills of Yorkshire knows he has a big target on his back in a field of multi-sport superstars.
Yeah, it is a star-studded lineup. I think it's fantastic that so many people wanted to come here to support what is a new event.
Anything less than his best won't be enough to hold off long-time rival Javier Gomez. No one can match Javier's World Triathlon Series record. 5 world titles, including 3 straight from 2013 to 2015. Not bad, but doesn't mean anything here.
You know how fast Alistair can go, or Richard Murray, or Mario Mola. I've raced them many times, but not on this format. And apart from the big names, the young guys are doing very well for this kind of distance. They can be very dangerous.
At 33, the Spaniard is showing no signs of slowing down. A broken elbow prior to Rio saw him out for 6 months. Since then, though, it's 2 wins from 2 outings.
2016 was a very tough year. Breaking my elbow just 1 month before the games was really bad, but I just took a bigger rest than other years, and I think my body recovered well after so many years of racing, and I think I'm ready for the next few years now.
Last year, Gomez gave up the WTS title to another Spaniard, Mario Mola, who dominated with 4 victories from 7 races.
Racing against guys like Alistair Brownlee, Jonathan Brownlee, Javi Gomez,
One world championship, it's nothing.
But this is new. What's the mindset?
Be prepared for pain and suffer, and then anything that is not that will taste better.
A very positive outlook, but that's the Majorcan's way. Always smiling, but not everyone out there is so gracious. If you prefer a bit of verbal jousting with your triathlon, then you'll like Richard Murray. The two-time Olympian from South Africa knows how to get inside your head and have fun doing it.
I think if there happens to be someone who gets the merit for having the most penalties in ITU, I think I might be taking that one. Yeah, a lot of the time I do little silly things and yeah, I obviously get slapped on the wrist for it.
Sometimes he goes a little too far. Murray was disqualified in Hamburg last year for making an obscene gesture to an official, although he has an excuse for that.
I was actually flipping off like in the general direction of just the world, I don't know, the world being angry, but then it happened to be directed, you know, it's seen as directed in that direction, but I'm just like, kind of just went like this, like, you know, that way. Like if I wanted to fish, I would have looked back and I would have done that.
Well, he's not here to be boring, and there is nothing boring about Super League Triathlon. The playing field has never been more level. Rivals, enemies. It will be pain in paradise, and the consensus is it could be the future.
Really good for the media, for the spectators, really exciting. It's really tough. Places like here, like Hamilton Island, is just perfect for that. So yeah, I hope the series keep going and get better and bigger and bigger.
He made an obscene gesture in the general direction of the official, not towards the official.
Well,
incorrect?
Look, heat of the moment, you know, you can make up for those things later on.
All right. Well, let's have a look now at the triple mix and exactly how it's going to play out across the afternoon. 3 stages with alternating sequences. Swim, bike, run to begin with, Emma, but then what happens?
Look, we're turning it right around and we're going to start with a run, bike, swim, and then we're going to have that 10-minute break again, and then we're going to go into a bike, swim, run.
Wow. Time bonus is awarded for each stage if you finish the first leg first or the stage leg overall first. And the winner of the triple mix has the lowest accrued time across the 3 races. So plenty of tactics involved here. And of course, the course. That is the other big feature of life here at Hamilton Island for these athletes. And Chris is about to take us through it.
Oh, this course truly is brutal. Everything about Super League is difficult. Starting with the swim, we've got a 29 degrees Celsius, one of the hottest swims I've ever seen in a triathlon. 300 metres, very, very tight to the first can. It's set up with the centre of the pontoon. Look for a lot of the athletes to converge on this. It's very important to get your position. We'll exit at the 300-metre point exactly, about 30 metres run to the bike transition, so very close between swim and bike. And this bike course is one of the toughest I've seen in any race in the world. In particular, this climb here, Mango Tree Hill, 14.5%, 200 metres long, a flat section along the top to the airport roundabout, and this part here, Stores Road descent. I was speaking to the athletes before this race, a lot of concern about this descent here. 6 laps to complete the 6-kilometre bike course and on to the run, a 4-lap run course along Front Street. It is brutally hot out there and this is immensely exposed. These dead turns here could play the difference in the person winning this race. Alistair Brownlee and Javier Gomez, if they've ever shown any kryptonite, have always struggled in these dead turn runnings. 4 laps to finish this run course, and we're going to crown the first ever Super League Hamilton Island champion.
Thanks, Chris. I'm very happy to be up here in the commentary box in the air conditioning. You're watching Super League live from Hamilton Island, the triple mix, not too far away. Countdown to the first race in Super League Triathlon history, the triple mix. Already the athletes are down on the swim pontoon as I welcome again Emma and Chris into commentary. We're running out of time. Things are about to start. You must be getting very excited as we look to the start order, and this is how it played out in the lottery yesterday. Dmitry and Igor Polyansky, the Russians, are both to what will be the camera left of the pontoon, which is going to be a bit more difficult for them, but we know they're fantastic swimmers. Mario Mola there in the 5th. Terenzo Bozzoni, another excellent swimmer, the Ironman, he's in 7th. As we move towards the middle of the pontoon, going to get very choppy here. Matt Hauser is one of the young guns. Javier Gomez will take 11 towards the middle alongside the Ironman, Brent McMahon. Christian Blumenfeld as well. We've got a couple of Aussies and Dan Hoy, another wild card.
as we move towards what will be the right-hand side of the pontoon. Richard Murray, the controversial South African, and Siggy Ragnarsson, first time for him out of Iceland. And then 23 and 24, can you believe it? Richard Varga, the fish, he always finishes first pretty much, and Alistair Brownlee as well rounds it out. Let's go right down now to Robbie McEwen, who has a man who knows his way around the water in the 400 metres this time. Ian Thorpe, Robbie.
Yeah, guys, I'm down here on the...
We're having a little bit of technical difficulty.
Fantastic to be back here.
Oh, here we go. No, we've lost Robbie there. We'll try and get back to him soon. Instead, we're going to take
with the triathlon to be able
sorry, we'll go back down to Ian.
One of the best talent in the world, but also one of the best locations in the world.
And down here for this magnificent event, a real groundbreaking event, sort of taking it back to the old Formula One days. And as a former sportsman at such an elite level, to see something like this here at Hamilton Island, just as a general sports lover, it must get you excited.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think it's important for us to always be able to redefine what sport is, how it can appeal to more people, and, you know, also the entertaining part of sport. On kind of the tradition of what that sport is. And I think today is going to be a great test for the competitors. And I think it's going to show triathlon an exciting new way.
All right, thanks, Ian, and enjoy the racing.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll pick up there. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, very mountainous Hamilton Island, so it's hard to sometimes get the signals. We're having a look now at the pontoon. You can see number one there, Dimitri Polyansky, all the way to the other end, and that's Alistair Brownlee and Richard Varga. Great mates, and 23 and 24, that is the spots that you want to be, isn't it?
Can you believe those two picked those spots? By pure luck, Alistair Brownlee drew his name out of the bucket, and he picked the best spot, in my opinion, on the pontoon. There's a little left-hand current that'll drag him very, very close to that first swim buoy.
It's very, very hot. The clouds are just starting to roll in a little bit. The weather very changeable here at Hamilton Island, but 29 degrees in the water and 31 degrees outside. So it's not as if you get a little refresher when you jump in. It's pretty much just jumping into a bath.
I was going to say it's hardly refreshing. It's pretty much hitting a spa bath and then heading straight into the sauna. But these guys have raced all around the world and are certainly accustomed to these sorts of conditions. But 24 on the start line is something they're not accustomed to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit more intimate, and it's going to be a big chop in the middle if you happen to drew that out of the lottery. It was a little bit different this time. They drew out names, but they weren't their own names for their own number. It was you can give someone else their number. So a lot of mind games going on in that Wednesday briefing, and people trying to maybe just give other people a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah, it was quite unique. What we decided to do was allow the athletes to come out in number order and pull a name out of the hat and select that position for the athlete's name they pulled out. And as I said earlier, Alistair Brownlee walked up and pulled his own name out of the hat. 1 in 24 chance. So that's how they're going to line up, and it gives you a bit of an advantage for the centre guys at position 12 with the boys lined up.
All right, here we go. Just a few seconds now to the start. We can see shaking the limbs out Alistair Brownlee closest to you, Richard Varga next to him, Crisanto Gojales next to him as well, as they line up for the first time into the water in Super League Triathlon. Just a few seconds to go, and they're in. Great start for Brownlee. It looked like he got a little bit out on Varga, but you can already see the chop as they start out in the first few 100 metres of this swim. It's going to be very, very tough when they get to the buoy, Emma.
115 metres to that buoy is one of the toughest places to be in any race. And, you know, there's so much congestion heading around those buoys at the best of times. And, look, we've seen the likes of Varga, you know, take it out early. But when the swim is this short, you know, I really know whether or not they're going to be able to take any sort of lead. But, you know, we're going to see all these athletes who are, well, they're the world's fastest and fittest, who is really, really going to show their true strength on this sort of course.
But interestingly, if you see on the left side, Varga is actually a little bit behind Polyansky. And if you take yourself back to the Olympics, it was Polyansky, Igor Polyansky, the Russian, that was actually first over the first 300 metres. So in an event that's only 300 metres long, he's showing his speed.
It looks like a little bit of an advantage to be on the outside there. A lot of people getting caught up in the chop in the middle as they funnel. It's almost a funnel into this buoy in a very, very hard turn. We've been notified that there are, in fact, no penalties, so it was a completely clean start, so we're not going to see any penalties paid. But already, gapping the field, that's Richard Varga, as we expected.
Look, it is an advantage being out on those outside points. When you said that there's so much congestion going around those first boys, but look, it really does get to showcase the strength of these athletes. I mean, we do know him as leading the swim, but look, over a couple of 100 metres, he's already able to gap some of the best in the world.
Dmitry Polyansky in second there, but a fair gap, maybe 3 lengths from Richard Varga, so he's going to have plenty to do to catch up to Varga there. You can see Henry Schumann closest to screen, and 3 or 4 people abreast there, including Jake Birtwistle, and I think we saw Javi Gomez as well. So those guys are very well positioned, but already the field's stringing out. I don't know whether we expected to see such a big gap across the field this early in the race.
It says a lot to just how fast Richard Varga is. We've seen him lead a lot of races out around the world, but this is 300 metres. Most of these guys should swim that first 300 around the same time, but he's 3 body lengths in front of the field here, which is amazing.
Well, if he has a good transition, we might not see him for a little while, but we've seen him lead out 28 of 34 WTS races that he's been in. He's been first out of the water. He is the fish. He owns the fastest Olympic distance swim time ever in the Serpentine in London in 2012, so you know he's going to be good. But these guys back in the pack, they also know that he's catchable because he hasn't been transferring that into WTS victories.
Look, transition is just a vital part of the race, and these guys are very well versed in racing in the world circuit. But again, there is just no opportunity to lose any time here. And like you said, we've seen him lead out a number of times, and he's also worked very closely with the Brownlee brothers at times. So I think when we get out onto the bike, we're going to really see whether or not he can keep this advantage.
You can see in one of the white jerseys there, I think that's Dan Hoy from New Zealand mid-pack. So that's great for one of the juniors. We always thought that these guys were going to surprise a few people, and certainly he's up there mid-pack.
That's Matt Hauser.
Matt Hauser in 33. That's right, Dan
Australian.
Hoy a little bit further back. Matt Hauser, 4-time Oceania champ, so he's certainly got the sprint credentials.
Look, these is where the young guns are able to show their colours, and you know they're able to get this experience up against the best guys in the world, and this is where this is the best platform for these athletes.
Varga out in 3:21, Henry Schumann not too far behind, and then a whole host of people, including Josh Amberger, who is big in 70.3, Mario Mola, the world champ, Jake Birtwistle, as we mentioned, and Matt Hauser as well, all within 10 or 12 seconds, which can be made up if there's a little mistake in transition here, as we see a little bit of fiddling with the strap.
Without question, but what I'm impressed with is young Jake Birtwistle. He has a weakness, it is the swim, so he's right mid-pack. Probably, in my opinion, the best runner in this field, but it's all going to happen now on Mango Tree Hill. This is a 14.5% grade, 275 metres to the top, so let's see what happens here.
That is a very, it doesn't look like that on television, but that is a very, very steep hill. My golf buggy has trouble getting up that hill, and maybe I didn't charge it up before I left the hotel, but already the field's spreading out. At the back there, Cameron Dye, and to the left of him, Siggy Ragnarsson. Siggy hasn't left Iceland before, and I was there when he got off the plane, and it looked like he'd been slapped in the face with the heat.
He's certainly having quite a few unique or first-time experiences landing in the country, and even just being surrounded by some of these athletes. You know, he hasn't had the opportunity to race at this level, let alone just be surrounded by them.
We saw at the bottom of your screen there, Richard Varga taking the 5-second bonus. We should explain that. The bonuses come in each of the 3 races. At the first leg, whoever's out of the first leg first will take a 5-second bonus into their total accumulated time, as is the winner of each of the 3 stages. And Varga looks like he's got quite the... he's really powered up that hill. He's actually extended his lead rather than lost it, and that is surprising. He certainly spent a lot of time on the bike in the or around the island during the week. He was one of the first to get here, and it looks like it's paying off, as Siggy looks to have lost a few people.
Siggy's out the back here. He's struggling from Iceland. It's been a big trip for Siggy. He's come across as a swimmer. This is his first exposure to
He's been staying with you, hasn't he?
He did. I think...
that might have hurt him.
Yeah, I think it has.
What have you been feeding him?
Too much, obviously.
Apparently. You've had also Javi Gomez, and I think it speaks volumes for the professionalism of Gomez, that he measures all his food, weighs everything, and Siggy's there eating a whole chicken and a big pack of noodles. So
without question. But this is the Sandown Stores Road. You look for the guys to put themselves in good position. I saw a couple of them still putting on their shoes. So it's interesting to see them come through here. They're going to come straight past the transition area to finish lap 1.
Very, very fast.
That's the sweeping right-hander and back up Mango Tree Hill. And this will start to pinch about 3 or 4 laps into this.
Yeah, first lap down, 5 laps to go on the bike before the transition into the run. And we knew they were going to come down Stalls Hill fast, but that was very quick into transition, and it's a little bit bumpy there at the bottom of the hill. Some parts have been relayed and some parts haven't, so you've got to stay certainly focused on that downhill, and if you're brave, well, then you can make up time.
Yeah, and Alistair Brownlee in 17th position. I don't think Alistair's been this far back in a race in years, especially on the bike. He's usually up front with Richard Varga, but this short, aggressive racing, he got a poor start, I thought. He was usually up with Varga, and it's cost him, and to move up will be very, very difficult for Alistair.
This is what Super League is all about, isn't it? Alistair in 17th, Javi Gomez, the 5-time world champion, in 19th after one lap on the bike. We're certainly mixing it up. We knew Christian Blumenfeld was going to be strong, but also Ben Shaw, the Aussie, is in just 4 seconds back, and he's moved up a spot into 3rd. So it's great to see a little bit of Aussie representation.
I was going to say a little bit of St Patrick's Day luck for Ben Shaw there, but
no, we say he's Australian, but he's actually racing for Ireland, isn't he?
He's an Irishman. It's St Patrick's Day today. So he could
indeed.
win this thing. And he said before he came into this race, look out for me. I'm ready to win this thing. I've come up and looked at the course more than any other athlete. I grew up on the Gold Coast, so... And here we have a shot of Varga.
Richard Varga down Stalls Hill, full gas. You can see, once again, the television doesn't do it justice. It is super hilly and super technical, isn't it?
I don't think there is a flat section on this whole island. I mean,
Siggy. We've lost Siggy Ragnarsson. We thought maybe he had a little problem. We're not quite sure exactly what has happened, but he looks to be in quite a little bit of pain. We'll try and find out maybe from Robbie what's going to happen as we see Ben Shaw come barreling into the 3rd lap. Very disappointing for Siggy. I'm not sure what it could be. I know we lost Jorik van Egdom before the race. If you're wondering where he is, he was a little bit unwell. We're hoping he's going to line up in tomorrow's race, and maybe Siggy succumbed to the same thing. It is very difficult to come from somewhere like Iceland into this kind of heat.
Look, travel for these athletes, I mean, their immune systems are, you know, always on that limit, and they've really come from the other side of the world and come to complete opposite temperatures, and, you know, it really does throw the body into somewhat shock no matter how trained and prepared they can be, and it's unfortunate circumstances, and it's part of the game. It's part and parcel of being an elite athlete.
Ben Shaw pushing up there alongside Richard Varga, who's come back to the pack. Shaw looks like he certainly means business. Andreas Salversberg is there in 3rd. Christian Blumenfeld, we mentioned, and Jake Birtwistle in 5th, with Ryan Fisher as well, who he does a lot of training with. Those are in 5th and 6th, and they're sitting there. It's a little bit easier, I imagine, to sit off a little bit and just wait and see how these things are going to play out, Chris.
Without question, but what I'm surprised is how much work Varga's doing. He's not renowned for his run. This is a swim, bike, run format in the 1st stage, and he's been on the front for 80% of this race. He led the swim out. He's doing a lot. Benny Shaw gave him a bit of help, but he's been on that front for most of this bike ride. It's sort of settled into this front group now, and there's 4 or 5 off the back, but this seems to be the established stars.
They seem to be maybe holding back just a little bit. They know there's a very tough run ahead of them as quite a big group forms, and they've dropped off a few people, and we can see Brent McMahon there, the oldest in the field at 36 years of age. 4 sub-8-hour Ironmans for him. I know someone on that commentary team who's done 4 sub-8-hour Ironmans.
Yeah, a long time ago.
I'm surprised you haven't mentioned that.
Yeah, no, I was going to come up next, but it's been a long, long time ago. These guys are super fast, but they're finding these tough, tight conditions very difficult. The Ironman athletes are used to that straight shoot, straight open roads, but it's this tight right-hand turn that a lot of the athletes are having a lot of difficulty with. You watch as they hit Mango Tree Hill, it splits up and comes back together, so that right-hander is becoming a very, very important part of this race.
14% gradient already out of the saddle. We know that's how tough that is. You've ridden your bikes up there in 14% gradient. We're going to see even worse tomorrow, 24% up One Tree Hill. That's going to be brutal because these guys are already hurting now.
I'm not sure whether you walk it, you run it, you take it in the buggy, but that hill is something else. It's Chris has certainly picked no harder place to ride a bike on the island, and the only flat section there, or only reprieve I think they're going to get in these whole 3 days is that airport, and that probably only lasts a good 2 kilometres.
And that guy on screen there is a long course athlete. Who would have thought that a 70.3 star, Josh Amberger, would be mixing it up with guys at this sort of distance? He's a superstar in my opinion, young Josh, an Australian, came out of the Australian Federation. He put his hand up and said, I want to dive in the deep end and race these guys, and look at him on the front, driving the pace. I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes in race 2 as well.
Well, he's a bike specialist. I mean, we've seen him in any race that he fronts up to. He does have a strong swim, and but particularly on the bike, and he's someone that is really, you know, honed in his bike skills as well. And I think on these sorts of courses, that's where they need to be. They have to be up the front. It's a dangerous place to be out the back, and also, you know, it's energy wasted. And I think someone like Josh is very aware of that, so he's up there dictating the pace and also keeping himself out of trouble.
It's very interesting that you say that, that because we've done a series of Facebook Lives. If you want to have a look at them, you can see interviews with almost all of the athletes. And Josh said he was worried about day one, the triple mix, because he's worried as an Ironman of his top end speed. But we're seeing that is no worry whatsoever. Well, we're hoping that it continues in this fashion as they come screaming down through the rough section once again for another lap. And it won't be long until this race is over. That's the beauty of Super League, isn't it?
Without question. I think it's racing attitude. You're seeing a lot of these guys on the front, young Ben Shaw earlier from Ireland. It's their attitude, it's their ability to be aggressive, and whether they've got the nerve to attack that descent. It doesn't look that steep on television, but I'm telling you, that is a tough technical descent. And Josh tore down it and put himself in front of this race, and that's going to set him up for the transition, because Super League racing is all about mistake-free racing, positioning yourself well, staying up there front. And look at Alistair Brownlee.
It's nice to see him hurting.
Look at that.
He is hurting. He's part of the pack, towards the back of the pack, about 4 seconds back in 13th at the moment. And there's 16 people in this lead pack. You can see on the chopper shot right there. And people that we've lost off the back include Brett McMahon, Matty Hauser, who's finding it difficult, Dimitri Polyansky, who led out the run. He's now 24 seconds back on the bike. So he's had a very tough time as
Ben Shaw's going off the front.
For Ben Shaw.
He is being super aggressive. I hope he knows he's got 2 more races to go, because he has been attacking them every chance he has. And I guess if you ever see Alistair Brownlee on the back with a grimace, if you're an opportunist, you put the knife in, don't you? You have a squeeze.
And like you said, these races aren't long. They're short and sharp, and they don't have time to waste. They don't have time to see how they feel 5K into the run. They have to go now. They have to take that advantage. You know, 2K, they may not be the fastest over there, but they need to get out there and go into that run, with an advantage. And a few seconds can mean everything in this type of racing.
And the run along Front Street is a very, very tight run indeed. It's going to be quite difficult to be more than 3 or 4 abreast. So someone like Ben Shaw, who's a good runner, I wouldn't say a great runner, could set himself up with a clean transition. He's moving out of his shoes now and put himself in a good start to run through this run, which will be important for him. Alistair Brownlee on the back.
Or is that experience? Because even though these are short races, there's 3 of them and there's 3 days of racing. Is it potentially sit back, wait to see how it all plays out, and maybe not blow yourself up on the first one?
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we?
We are going to find out, and it's very exciting as we go through the 5th lap now. We've completed, and Ben Shaw leads by, well, not very much actually, only 1 second, because his people have bunched up coming into transition. He's come back to the pack, but certainly pushing the place. Josh Amberger there as well, Christian Blumenfeld, Ryan Fisher, Ryan Bailey, Alessandra Fabian as well.
Gomez on the inside, running right up the back. Oh, Benny Shaw's stopped. What's happened there?
We've found out that Ben Shaw, not sure what's happened, but Shaw has stopped. He's miscounted the laps,
and
he's got the shoes off.
That is inexperience right there.
Oh, that is a heartbreaking mistake for Ben Shaw, who looks so good.
Wow, that is
Thought it strange that he took his feet out of the pedals, and we saw lap 5 on the graphic, and suddenly he's going to find himself right at the back of the pack. So that is
as much as it's hard to take note in this sort of racing, you do have to be aware, you do have to concentrate, and not just about the little things going around you, but the simple things like that. And yeah, that is a costly mistake.
It's a costly mistake, inexperience. He was in front, I guess. He came down. I saw him take those shoes off. I thought we were coming in for the last lap there, but he's made a big error there, and he's taken himself out of race 1, in my opinion.
That's what Super League is all about, is it not? It's about mixing up the order. It's about being mistake-free. Even little errors. I mean, that was a bit more than a little error, but a little error can cost you on a course that is so tight, and we haven't even started mixing up the orders yet. So there's going to be a lot of brain cells firing once we put everyone in a backwards discipline in 10 or 15 minutes' time.
Well, they're going to get off the bike on this lap, and I was very interested to see Javier Gomez has stayed right out of trouble, but he's been sitting about 4th or 5th well. Alistair Brownlee has not got off the back of this bike pack, and that's not by choice, in my opinion. He's stuck there. He can't move up. Christian Blumenfeld leading them in.
Transition, yeah, Blumenfeld leading them in from Ryan Fisher and Richard Varga, and then a whole host coming in. It's all about transition here. We've got a 2K run. It's time to get some of those Ks in those legs, which will be hurting after several gradients like that. But Fisher is first out, and he's setting a cracking pace.
And there's Henry Schumann with Richard Murray. Richard's one I think can really attack this run course. It's the dead turns, as I said earlier, that are going to make this run course very, very interesting. It's 330 metres to the first turn, and then we're going to do 3 internal laps that are only 400 metres long. So very, very dead turns. And Fish looks fantastic. Ryan Fisher, the Australian Olympian.
He does, but in the sunglasses there, Javi Gomez just sitting in about 5th position, and that's always a bit of a worry. He knows how to do these things. He knows how to pace himself. Richard Murray, we can see they're just going off screen, had the 5th fastest run split, as in Abu Dhabi a couple of weeks ago, so he's in fantastic nick as well.
Look, I think if the quads aren't burning, the calves are certainly burning now. And like you mentioned, Chris, it's those dead turns. It's just coming to that turnaround and having to regain your speed, pick it back up again. And we're going to see whether, how much this is taking out, where these athletes are going to pay for this sort of type of racing in the next 2 stages. But Ryan Fisher...
That looks awkward, doesn't it?
Blumenfeld, Murray.
It looks awkward for those rhythm runners, and you see a guy like an Alistair Brownlee who, when he gets up to top speed, just looks like he's flying across the tarmac. That's very hard and awkward to stop like that, and you're going to have to do that.
And it's Alistair Brownlee. It's Alistair Brownlee who's missing from this front group of runners. He's been shelled. He found that bike ride very, very difficult. Javier Gomez, always doing what he does best, looks comfortable, looks very, very controlled, but Brownlee...
He's a long way back. He's behind Matt Hauser, and that'll give Matt Hauser no end of confidence knowing... Is there a problem for Brownlee there? He looks like he's almost pulled over to the left.
He's never liked hot weather. If there's ever been a kryptonite with this kid, it is hot weather racing.
Brent McMahon's gone past Alistair Brownlee like he's nearly standing still. Not sure exactly what the problem is, or if there's a problem, or potentially he's just, as the first race of the year, not up to that standard of the heat and humidity.
Well, is it also tactical? I mean, is he looking at this? I haven't raced. All these guys have probably got a race or 2 under their belt for the year. He knows that as he progresses through the rounds, throughout the days, that he knows within himself he has to take it a little bit slow. Like you said, if there's some sort of chink in his armour and that is dealing with the heat, in order for him to get through just through the afternoon, let alone the next 2 days, does he seriously have to sit back and talk to himself and say, no, I've got to be patient. This is a tactical game, and this is all the stuff that we do not know about.
Ryan Fisher has not got off the front once. He looks fantastic. Christian Blumenfeld, the biggest guy in the field, he's a big fan favourite of mine. And
that's
Javier
because
Gomez,
he's racing at 77 kilos, just like you did back in the day.
Exactly. But I disagree with Alistair Brownlee. He looks flat-footed. I think he struggled in this heat. He was complaining about the heat and training all week. These guys have raced all year. And as Javier Gomez said to me earlier in the week, this is the Olympics he never got to race. So he's coming here keen to get his first hit out against Brownlee in 9 months. And he's laying his mark down here. He looks very, very comfortable.
We saw a few sideways glances there as the leading pack saw Alistair Brownlee go past probably 200 metres back nearly by now. And some surprised faces. I saw Richard Murray look and go, well, something's wrong. Something must be wrong.
I think you're right. I think none of them are used to seeing him in that position. And like you said, probably running flat, that's probably the best way to describe it. I mean, we're so used to seeing him up on his toes. And, it's very much within the British. They seem to all have that same running style, and it's very, very fast.
Sad times for Siggy Ragnarsson. What an amazing story. 2 years ago, he ran his first triathlon. His career progression has been stellar. I wonder if there's been a problem, or
he did look to be holding his hamstring there, just as we saw him rolling down the hill. So you never know, like with this sort of heat, and the guys are not accustomed to it. I mean, cramps, that can come into play very early on.
And this young Jacob Birtwistle, there's been a lot of talk about this kid. He's under 23 world champion. He's from Tasmania. In my opinion, this kid's going to win a world title. He's a fantastic little athlete, and he's pushing the freight pace on a 5-time world champion. He has a dual Olympic gold medalist behind him, and he may take out this first race win. He looks spectacular.
Yeah, Birtwistle with 11 middle and long distance running titles in Australia. So I spoke to him earlier in the week, and he said, I am the fastest runner in triathlon. Forget Alistair Brownlee, I am the quickest. And here is his chance to show us all that he is in fact the quickest, because he has the most accomplished ITU racer right behind him in Javi Gomez. No one has 5 world titles except for Gomez, and if he can put one over on him, that's a huge confidence boost.
Well, look, he also missed the Rio Olympic team. That sometimes is motivation in itself for an athlete, to go out. They've got nothing to lose. They want to prove that they're worthy of an Olympic berth, and these are the sort of opportunities where these athletes can come out and just say, you know what, forget it all. I'm here to race. I'm here to put my foot down. I don't care about who you are and what you've done previously. I'm going to race, and I'm going to show you how good I am. And maybe this is just a prime opportunity for someone like you said. I totally agree with you, Chris. I think we're yet to see the best of this boy.
Yeah, Mario Mola, the current world champion, right off Birtwistle's left shoulder. Javier Gomez, one of the greatest of all time in my opinion, but Christian Blumenfeld, my favourite, the Norwegian, who if anyone was going to suffer in hot conditions, it's this guy. But he is right there, 77 kilos.
Here's the lineup as we see it. Jake Birtwistle, Mario Mola, the world champ. Richard Murray is there as well. Javier Gomez and Blumenfeld, as you mentioned. Behind them, Ryan Bailey and Ryan Fisher, and then quite a big gap, about 8 seconds to Alessandro Fabian, with Richard Varga, who led out in the swim, slipping back to 11 seconds behind the main pack. And if we look further down, Alistair Brownlee has yet to pass the marker for a time that's 48 seconds plus. So he's dropped well out of contention.
He's hurting. But look at this. This is the pressure applied by a youngster. We talked about it, giving the youngsters the opportunity to shine. He is giving it to the current world champion, Mario Mola, considered the best runner in conventional triathlon. And he's the Australian under-23 world champion, squeezing, opening up. Every second counts.
He looks to be doing it a lot easier too. His face looks very relaxed. He doesn't seem to be labouring, whereas Mola even sort of had a little bit more strain. So
he's our first winner.
Here is our first winner. Jake Birtwistle is going to do the job. He's going to hold off Mario Mola with Richard Murray third. Our first Super League triathlon winner is a local, a Tasmanian lad, an Aussie. It's fantastic to see, and what a great run it was from Jake Birtwistle. We talked about it. You called him earlier in the week. You said this is the guy to look out for, and you were 100% correct. Jake Birtwistle takes the 5-second bonus and stage 1, the very first, as he goes straight to the ice bucket.
Look how tired they are. 18 minutes or 20 minutes of racing, and look at the fatigue. But fantastic job, Jake Birtwistle. A lot of talk about this kid. He is. I've seen his run times. He's won an under-23 world title. I thought he was left off the Australian Olympic team prematurely. He'd done a lot, but fantastic to see him win. And there's the current Olympic champion, Alistair Brownlee, running with Dan Hoy from New Zealand, the young junior.
I wonder if Dan Hoy ever thought that a couple of weeks ago he gets brought in, suddenly he's alongside Alistair Brownlee and going to finish maybe ahead of him. Yeah. What a big moment for a young man.
Alistair seems to be moving better now than he has all race.
That's true.
Maybe, you never know. There's a lot of racing to go. 3 days of racing. Alistair's never been beaten up like this, so it's how he's going to bounce back in the next few races to see what sort of headspace he's in.
I think if anyone's got the mental fortitude, Alistair certainly knows what to do. And like you said, whether it's tactical or not, we're certainly going to find out in these next 2 rounds.
Ben Shaw obviously very unhappy there as he crosses the finish line. He was in the lead. Alistair Brownlee finishes well down in 19th position. Terenzo Bozzoni behind him. Cam Dye still to finish, and Dimitri Polyansky, who led the swim out, so obviously found the conditions very difficult. We're now going to throw down to Robbie McEwen. What's happening down there in transition? There's some very hot boys down there, Robbie.
Oh, there is a whole lot of hurt going on in that recovery. So, for this man, Jake Birtwistle, what a performance. The first ever winner in Super League history. How's that feel?
Yeah, it feels good. It's also very handy to get that 5-second bonus as well. So, yeah, just got to recover now and hopefully back it up again.
So during that run leg, where it was all on, down for the win, the 5-second time bonus, how much were you thinking forward to the next races, still to come this afternoon? Because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Recovery.
Yeah, it definitely is all about recovery. But at the end of the day, there's no point in saving yourself here, I don't think. My tactic is just to take every race as it comes in and go hard. And if I make it to day 3, so be it, or if I don't, then that's too bad. But yeah, that's the plan for now.
And now you've raced on it, the first impressions of this course under race conditions, obviously you must love it.
I don't know if I'd say I love it. It's pretty bloody hard, but yeah, no, it's good. It certainly sorts them out, that's for sure.
All right, well done. Work on the recovery. There's about 8 minutes to go to the next race. Good luck.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Robbie. Let's take a look now at the results from race 1 in the history of Super League Triathlon, and it was a very, very painful one as well. Jake Birtwistle did the job, as we can see the chopper shot. Everything looks calm, actually. Everything looks calm from up here, but there was a lot of pain. Mario Mola 1 second behind. Richard Murray, the Aussies there. Ryan Bailey. Richard Varga gets a bump up for finishing the thing. And I think we've got Robbie again now, as we look at the rest of the thing, with Alistair Brownlee.
Oh, here in the recovery zone with Alistair Brownlee. Ali, how did that go for you? First race out, these really tough, humid, hot conditions. Was it up to your expectations?
I knew I was going to struggle, and I just felt bad from the start. I got rustled around in the swim a bit, got really beat up by a few of the guys, especially that Mexican guy who was just hammering me. And then out on the bike, I just struggled, just didn't have the legs, to be honest. Normally I'm pushing on up the hills, but today I was just hurting, to be honest, and I came off my bike and just didn't have anything.
So when you got into the run there and you felt it wasn't going your way in round 1, there's still 2 races to come. Did you start to think to yourself, nothing lost, just get a few points, I'm going to come into my element sooner or later?
Yeah, well, I knew I was losing too much time then to be good for overall, but you know, I knew there was no point really pushing it either and putting myself in a complete box. So, you know, I just ran what I could and felt a bit better towards the end, but that first K was just horrendous.
Thanks, Ali. Good luck in the next race.
That wraps us up for race 1, but it's only a few minutes until race 2 as the guys try and cool down. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. They don't call it pain in paradise for nothing. A little helicopter ride earlier in the week for the boys. Alistair Brownlee looked a little bit happier than he did when we saw that interview just then. He'll be well out of contention for the overall as we get set for the start of stage 2. We're going to start with the run this time, and it's going to be very interesting how the guys back up.
Oh, look, I think this is where the calves, the cramps, anything can show its rear its ugly head at this point in time. But these guys, as you can see, are setting up transition again. They go through this before every race, but obviously they're not doing it back-to-back like they are. So, you know, they're going to be diving back into the water for the last leg, and that's something that they've never done before. And I can tell you what, if you've ever done that for fun in training or...
Fun?
No.
What are you talking about?
It's not fun.
It was interesting. I saw Henry Schumann doing something with his bike there. Whether he's changing out, whether he's picked the wrong gearing or he's had a problem. Because that was definitely swapping out that big chainring. So maybe he's got over that mango tree hill. There it is right there. He's getting rid of the rotor crank and switching it out. He doesn't have a lot of time. He has to be done within 10 minutes. So it's they either fix it or he's done.
Yeah, we've got only about less than 3 minutes to go. So not much time to get these things done, as we've already seen a whole host of things. We knew Super League was going to bring this, but we've seen mistakes, we've seen people struggling, and we've seen plenty of action from Robbie McEwen. We're working him pretty hard. What's happening, Robbie?
Well, down here at now the start of race 2, I'm here with Ian Thorpe yet again. And Ian, how did you enjoy that first race?
Look, it was great. I think what was really interesting after it is seeing how people finished the run, and some people absolutely exhausted. Others looked like they went through it not comfortably, but were in a little bit more control than the others.
Are you getting the impression there's a race within the race to see who can recover the best? That 10-minute flies by, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And do you know what? I think people may play it strategically, because 10 minutes can actually increase the amount of lactic acid, which is the pain you feel in the muscles. Others are, you know, doing an active recovery, which means you're doing a little bit of exercise in between the competition itself.
Well, get ready to see a whole lot more suffering in about 1.5 minutes' time.
Very interesting insights there from Thorpe, and a very interesting start to this run. It's not a traditional everybody take off. We're going to see a rolling start. If you've ever seen NASCAR, you know they roll into the start line and then take off. Chris, explain to us exactly how this is going to work in a couple of minutes' time.
Well, and they're going to start in the order that they finished in the last race. So you're going to see young Jacob Birtwistle first, with Mario Mola second, but they're going to be led out by two legends of triathlon. It's going to be, as you said, a rolling start. The first 100 metres of this run course, the finish line is very tight, so we're going to let these two guys, two legends of our sport, lead out the best in the world.
So they've just busted themselves on the run at the end of stage 1, sit down for 8 to 10 minutes and run again straight away. This is, I knew you were into pain, but I didn't know you were into pain this much when you started these formats.
Well, it's only because I'm retired. I don't have to go through it. I get to sit back and enjoy a sport I love. And
I'd love to see you go through it.
No, thank you. No, thank you. This is very, very difficult racing. You can see how tight this run course is, and it's going to be very difficult. This is why every single race matters, because it's going to be very difficult to move up. Two legends on screen there. That's Brad Bevan, probably the greatest ever at this distance, an ITU Hall of Famer. And on the left side, the big gentleman is Spencer Smith, the first ever Englishman to ever win a world title, a 3-time ITU world champion, the last non-drafting, just an absolute legend. They've come out to support the new wave, and you know what's happened with English triathlon now. Spencer was the foundation of it all.
You've got to be confident to wear pink, and I saw him in salmon pants last night, so he's got no problem wearing pink whatsoever, as we see some running repairs there to Alistair's bike as well.
It certainly seems everybody's finding out any little problem within their equipment is needing to be fixed, but looking forward to just seeing these two guys. I mean, I looked up to these when I first started the sport, so I'm sure it's probably well before any of the athletes that are lined up there before. But Chris, I mean, like you mentioned, great friends of yours.
Yeah, and they're off.
And the rolling start behind two of the sports legends as the crowd builds alongside Hamilton Island. Jack Birtwick, who you can see on the left in P1, Mario Mola alongside him. These boys are going to peel off in a little bit, and then it'll be on once again. We know Jake gave everything that he had in that race and said that there was no point in leaving anything in the tank, and now we're about to find out if there is a point to leave something in the tank, whether he can do it again as they move then into the bike and the swim, and he's already gapped them from a little bit.
Look, Ben Shaw already seems pretty annoyed with his previous race, and he's up to try and I think probably sit on the shoulder of Jake and you know, use him as the pacer. I mean, these guys, a couple of them have raced on the track before, as we know, but you know, again, tactical. Let's just hope he knows how to count this time.
He's an intense man, Ben Shaw. I wouldn't like to be talking to him in that transition after making that error. He seems like a very intense man, and there you go, the two of them are making a statement early again.
Well, Jacob Birtwhistle has run a 1,500 metres on the track in 3:51. That gives you some idea to just how much speed this guy has as a triathlete. They've gapped them already. It's going to be very difficult for the guys at the back to move through. It's very, very tight, but Benny Shaw said, I've had enough, I'm going to push to the front.
Well, as you said, I mean, there is that 5-second bonus up for grabs. So considering the time he lost with his error in that previous race, he knows that this is something he has to go after.
He definitely does. He's probably a little fresher. He probably saw he made that mistake, shut it down, has to catch up that time, and you're probably 100% right. He wins this first run, the fastest runner, first past the mat, will get a 5-second time bonus, so he can pull back a lot of time. Terenzo Bozzoni looking to be struggling a little bit.
Well, it's very hard when you start a rolling start at the back to make up any time, especially when some parts of this course are incredibly narrow. I mean, you've got to come barreling into the corners to even stay with the group, and that's part of what Super League is providing, and these athletes are learning as they go along. And as we see, people of different tactics, people are adjusting their gear, people are making errors. They're learning, like we all are, about what kind of pain Super League is providing and just how different it is to every other race and every other racing format we've seen in the past, and that is exactly what we were aiming for.
And what is very different is you got two youngsters on the front of this race, which you don't see in conventional racing. We said it before we came. Look at these styles of racing and see how much the youngsters can change the game. Ben Shaw, Jacob Birtwhistle, gapping the field. Christian Blumenfeld, one of the youngsters. And that's Mario Mola, Javier Gomez, all coming through there. And again, Alistair Brownlee on the back. He hasn't moved through.
Not too far. He's still at the back of that pack. It was interesting how he automatically pointed a finger there during that interview at being bashed up by, I think, Crisanto Grajales.
Yes.
It's interesting, the mindset of these guys, whether or not they are willing to say things like that, and that's what we want to see when we talk to them in moments like that.
Well, tough luck, Alistair. That's Super League racing. It's 300 metres. It's going to be tight. It's going to be, you're going to get belted up, and for Crisanto, he saw an opportunity, why not throw an arm? You get around that swim cam first. It's all about position. He wants to win the $100,000, and it doesn't matter who you are, if it's Alistair or Ben Shaw or Jake Birtwhistle, if they're in the way, you move them out of the way.
But we talk about rivalries, but we also talk about people who train together, and Crisanto and Javier have trained together for quite some time, and it's also been talked about the number of people that the Brownlee brothers have employed at some times to work with them in the swims, and you know, sometimes you know, these are the sort of opportunities where people say, you know what, we've had enough of some of the stick you've given us in the water previously, and you know, it's time to have a little bit of, you know, taste your own medicine.
Exactly. I tell you what, I never realised Ben Shaw was as good a runner as he showed. He looks very, very comfortable. Of all the people I've seen in this, all the athletes racing, the two on the front look very relaxed. Gomez always would be a fantastic poker player. He never shows his hand, looks very, very comfortable. Christian Blumenfeld surprised me, he's third around. But those two lads on the front, spectacular running. Well, Ben Shaw at 191 centimetres, that's certainly got to help him. I think he referred to himself in an interview for Super League a couple of weeks ago as the White Kenyan, because he can run in that kind of style. He's long, he's lanky, he's got big steps, and he seems to be eating the win pretty well here. Well, these two know there's also 5 seconds up for grabs here. The group have I don't know if the group's let them go or they've run away, because I tell you what, if young Jacob Birtwistle grabs his 5 seconds, he's got the 5-second bonus from winning the first race. That's going to put him in a very, very difficult place to move past coming into the third event. So it's a cumulative time that's going to win this day's racing.
And this day's racing worth 20 points overall across the 3 days. We obviously see the champion crowned at the end of Sunday. You'll take 20 points, and it's a sliding scale across the points, 18 for second, 16, 15, 14. Anything below 16th, you'll pick up 1 point. Unless you don't finish, that'll be 0 points for you, like Jorik van Egden will start on 0 points tomorrow. And then it's a cumulative across the 3 days, and that winner will take out $100,000. So to go to bed tonight, as busted up as you're probably going to feel, knowing that you've got a couple of points over everybody else, and you've hurt in those conditions better than other people have, would be a very comforting thing before the very, very early start tomorrow for what will be a brutal time trial.
Oh, without question. They're up early in the morning. It's how you recover from today's racing. Things are going to change over the next 3 days, but it's definitely a form finder. You're going to see who has done the work and who hasn't in day one's racing. And Ben Shaw has been aggressive all day. He swam well. He was very, very aggressive on the bike. He made that mistake in race 1. On the front of this run, pushing Jacob Birtwistle. He looks motivated to do something special this weekend, and he said it in the lead up to this event. He wanted to do something special.
Look, he has been working on his run so much so that he said he got himself injured by doing too much. And sometimes those athletes are always finding that fine line, but that accumulation and finding the strength in his legs. He says that that's probably an area where he'd like to be doing well, but hasn't always done well. And this is the sort of opportunity, as he's learnt through injury, that where he can actually pick this back up.
Who is going to take this 5-second bonus? They are neck and neck as they come across the finish line for the run. Both of them talking about what they're going to do here. I'm sure that there's no collusion through these two, but a big sprint as we move across the finish line. I'm not even sure who crossed it first there.
I don't know who got that.
I'm not sure who got it. We'll find out very soon, but there's 5 seconds on off of that one, and quite a big gap as they sprinted for those two. They've gapped the field a little bit as they come in, and they're going to change into the bike. And I think, Robbie, I don't know if you're there right now, but what is happening down there?
Oh, boys, I'm here, and I tell you what, there's a pushing and shoving going on. Shaw running out with his bike amongst all the runners coming in, but as Birtwistle made the best transition, he had his helmet clicked on as soon as it hit his head, and Shaw has lost a lot of ground. So Birtwistle, our race 1 winner, off the front, and he knows this course perfectly now, so he can go on the attack. A lot of riders, they made mistakes last race with their gearings getting onto the hill. A lot slicker out of transition onto the bikes this time, but against Birtwistle, he's looking the fittest and the strongest.
Oh, I don't know if you saw, but on our replay right now, we can see it was almost a dead heat for that 5-second bonus. So we'll wait to see what the timing comes in on that one. It's pretty much neck and neck. It'll be who has the longest nose, I think. But at this point, Jacob Birtwistle is doing the job, and he hasn't put his feet in yet, unlike Ben Shaw. I don't know if that's going to... If that's the option, what would you do in that situation? Because it certainly looks like if you do put your feet in, you pretty much lose any momentum you had before the climb.
Well, he can get over the top of this climb now. He gets a little bit of a descent, and there's the pain on Alistair. I sound like I get excited when I see Alistair in pain.
You do. You are getting excited.
It's rare that you get the opportunity to see that. And we said all week that the pace was going to be very, very aggressive. He seemed quite confident about dealing with that pace. He hasn't raced this year. We asked him about that. He said, who cares? Ben Shaw's got that 5-second bonus.
He deserved it too.
He really
put in for that one, and he deserved it after what happened, his little brain fade before. And apologies to our viewers in the UK and Europe who might be massive Alistair Brownlee fans. We sound like we're on him, but what we want to see is an upsetting of the established order. And if there's anyone who represents the established order, it's that man. He has been dominating in recent times, and he knows he can get up for big races. It is his first race of the year, so we're sure we'll see him do incredible things later on in the year, but it is great to see a mix-up of the order as we see Brownlee on screen right now trying to catch up to what is a large pack as they move into the end of the first lap of the bike.
Yeah, look, I'm this guy's biggest fan. I'm Alistair Brownlee's biggest fan, but as I said leading in all week, I said, Alistair, how are you in these hot, humid conditions? And he seemed very laissez-faire, didn't really care about it, but it's good to see a guy like him with his sort of talent suffer. That's what Super League racing's about. And they're together, Ryan Fisher and Jake Birtwistle. Good boy, Ryan Fisher, the two Aussies.
He has had a massive first lap of the bike to come from there, and we've swapped Ben Shaw out for Ryan Fisher, who... And these guys know each other incredibly well. They've almost got I don't know if there's a little bit of work together now. There's the two of us. Let's not do too much work. Let's share it between us. They know each other very well. Would we be expecting something like that?
Look, I think Olympic experience too. You know, the Rio course was very hilly and testing like this. And, Yeah, I think, you know, when the Australians get together, like you said, we've seen that in previous decades in our sport, and I think we're starting to see a resurgence of the Aussies really communicating with each other and maybe not necessarily working against each other. And, you know, I mean, Fisher knows how good Birtwistle is on the run, but they can use their strength. They can talk together, swap the turns like this at the front, and use their momentum. And that's somewhere where you saw, like Ben Shaw, even just coming out of transition, their gearing wasn't right. They didn't think about it in, you know, in that 10-minute break where they had to be and where they had to start off. And, you know, it's all about momentum lost, and it's clearly showing again.
Look, I spoke to Ryan Fisher in the recovery or the locker room yesterday. I asked him how he's feeling. He was one of the excited guys to pick up a Super League contract. He said to me, Macca, I'm going to give it all. Everything. I'm not going to leave any question mark around my performance in this race. I'm fit. I'm ready to go. I'm riding really well. I'm swimming really well. And there he is off the front of this. Remember, Javier Gomez has just won the opening race of the season on the ITU circuit. So he's been the most dominant athlete this year, and these two boys have split him up.
Yeah, he won a 70.3 in Dubai before that as well. So his 2 races since coming back from 6 months out with a broken elbow that saw him miss Rio have been 2 wins. So really, stage 1 is the first race that he hasn't won since breaking his elbow. But just back on Fisher as well, as we see the 2 Aussies sharing the work for another time up Mango Tree Hill. Fisher, it's a great story. I mean, back in 2014, he'd lost motivation, and he considered bulking up and trying out for an AFL team. Aussie rules football is big in this country, and that could have been a very lucrative move for him if he in fact did make an Australian football team, but instead turned around, gave it everything, made the Rio team. He was selected for his excellent riding on a hilly course, and it's showing right now as
he's dropped Birtley. He's dropped
Birtley. There you go.
He looks fantastic. He looks very compact and strong. This is a tight technical bike course. He seems to be handling his bike really well. He just looks strong. Very, very strong, and it's good to see. And post the Olympics, and maybe you can talk about this, Emery, he talked about an Olympic depression after the event, the whole build-up to the Olympics, and he was considering, as you said, walking away from triathlon, and this series came along and it gave him that resurgence to get back into it.
Look, for someone like him, and I mean, even in the lead up to the Olympics, he trained his coach, and he looked at his program differently, and he said, you know, if I really want to go after the Olympics first and foremost, I'm going to commit to something different, because what I've been doing is not working. And all credit to him. But again, you know, making the Olympics is one thing, but it is such a big build up, and you feel like everything revolves around it, and you get that post-Olympic depression like you spoke of, and sometimes it's something interesting, exciting. You know, you love the sport, but what you were doing it doesn't have the same feel. And to go out and race with just, you know, no regard for what you were previously doing, not thinking about, you know, the status quo of what I was racing like before. You have no comparison. And I think it's brilliant. I think this is the perfect time for an athlete like him to show that, you know what, I do love this sport. I do want to be here. I just need to refresh my mind. You know, my body's willing. It's just the mental side sometimes that can, you know, have these athletes come undone.
But what's going to be very, very interesting about race 2 of the triple mix is the swim finish. And swimming after a bike ride is very, very tough. But 3 Aussies on the front, Ryan Fisher, Ryan Bailey, Jake Birtwistle, Ben Shaw and Brent McMahon, 4 times under the 8-hour mark for an Ironman. Maybe this is where the endurance side of things are starting to show.
It's funny you say that, because he finished well off the back in stage 1, so obviously he's starting to work into it. He's one of the older athletes. All these guys, and Jake Birtwistle is 22, Brent McMahon is 36, so there's a huge age gap between these 2 guys, and we know you build endurance as you get older. Perhaps we see a guy like Brent McMahon more in day 2 and day 3 as these guys start to wear out a little bit more, and that's just another one of the many, many question marks that we've got as we see one of the big groups here at the front there. Javi Gomez obviously pushing the pace, and Mario Mola, a fellow Spaniard, alongside him, as they know that they're going to lose huge amounts of time if they can't make it up on the swim.
I'm a big fan of this kid on screen right now, Ryan Bailey. Yep. I've seen this guy come from the junior ranks. He's one of the hardest working athletes I've ever seen, a real blue-collar athlete. He put himself in the Australian Olympic team. It was fantastic to see, and one of the strong bike riders in the field. I think he's a guy that can put himself on the podium, and I'd love to see him win the entire 3 days of racing.
Look, I think this sort of course suits him. I mean, probably the conditions as well, the heat and the humidity, but I mean, he's only 65 kilos and 172 centimetres, so his power to weight ratio is fantastic, and this is where he gets to shine and show those things. But again, like you mentioned, he's an aggressive racer. He wants to get out there, he wants to put everything on the line, and he is, like you mentioned, very, very determined.
Yeah, his eyes said it all then. You saw the look of focus dead-eye focus. But Ben Shaw, you know, I would never have picked Ben Shaw coming into this race. He talked a big game, and he was one of the young, talented kids, and he told me, I am going to be aggressive all day. And I thought, okay, he may be talking it up a bit, but he really has. He's been one of the showcase races in race 2 and race 1 and 2, and he's right there again in front of the world's best. These are the best 24 athletes on the planet.
Ryan Bailey there, as we were talking about, in the lead group, along with a couple of other Aussies and Ben Shaw. And Bailey's one who knows that he's not a great swimmer, and you can feel that he's pushing on the bike because he knows that he's been focusing on his swim of late. He's been working with a swim stroke analyst at the Australian Institute of Sport, Mark Ellepot, to try and improve his splits on that. But you can see he's pushing hard on the bike to give himself as much time to most of the guys, because, as we say, this is an accumulated time thing. So he might not win this stage, but he'll have taken a chunk of time out of a lot of guys that'll be ahead of him after the first stage.
But this is the chasing bunch, and if you saw who was on the front of this bunch, it's the fastest swimmer in the sport. The one who led the swim out in race 1, he's leading this bunch all the way up, and that's Polyansky on the other side, another fantastic swimmer. So we're finishing with a swim, and these guys all spoke about it. Varga, Polyansky said, finally I get to showcase my strength and showcase that to the finish line. They're putting themselves in a position to swim them down, because I've said it twice now, swimming after running and riding is very, very difficult. Technique comes into play, cardiovascular comes into play, and swimmers tend to have both those.
I'll take your word for it. Swimming, for me, swimming is very hard. Any kind of swimming. Any kind of swimming. But it'll be very interesting to see someone like a Varga. When we saw him in clean water, he gapped everyone by 3 or 4 lengths. He's done that time and time again. Is he going to be able to swim people down in rough water and swim through people on a narrow course like this, or is he going to get held up?
I think he's going to swim them through. I remember doing races like this, and the swimmers, when you are fatigued in the water, your technique is so important. And if you don't have it, you pay big time. And Varga's technique's spectacular. Out of these 3 leaders, I'd say Benny Shaw is probably the better swimmer, so he's probably getting a little bit excited right now.
He has kept, so see, that Henry Schumann's taken his feet out this time. Could it be that there is 1 lap to go?
Yeah, he's got the bell lap.
He has potentially made a mistake there and taken it out 1 early. We'll find out. Ben Shaw was keeping his feet firmly planted in those shoes. He wasn't making that mistake again. You saw his look on his face as he went past as well.
And yeah, there's a bit of communication going on between the 2 Aussies. I think there was somewhat a bit of frustration. You know, when you're in these sorts of environments, you can work together, can't you? I mean, you know, when it's drafting like this, you've got to utilise, you know, both your combined strength. And I think, you know, for them, they probably feel that Ben's probably disrupting that pattern a little bit.
Yep.
And rather than talking and rolling through and taking short turns, which is the most cost-effective way, you know, you can see that he's obviously expended a lot, which is obvious. But these 2 boys have trained a lot more together, and probably on the world stage a little bit more accustomed to racing like this.
Yeah, and now it's a downhill. That's a slight climb up to this roundabout. The 2 boys are going to go around it now, and it's a downhill shoot. So they've set themselves up really, really well for this swim finish. And it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to swim this, because it's a very, very tight swim exit. 5 seconds to win this thing, and they're both not renowned as being, you know, super swimmers.
But have you noticed that some of the Australians have got their goggles already down their suits? So very interesting that, you know, they've taken, you know, where they could possibly fumble, you know, those tiny little times of doing up the helmet, grabbing your goggles, especially while running, trying to get them on. So there's tactics within the race, you know, not even everyone's employing.
As the 2 Ryans come into transition, let's go down to Robbie McEwen. How are you seeing it down there?
Oh, boys, the intensity level has just gone up 10 notches. Really quick transition. And the face of Shaw, well, that's gone from determination and anger. He's starting to suffer. Ryan Bailey looking really comfortable in second. Little gap there. Fisher has just sprinted out of the blocks out of this transition. There goes Varga. He is now in 4th position, rounds that turn, got his goggles on, and he can see the guy he's got to swim down. And now this is the big question. How much are they hurting with the swim as the 3rd leg? It's going to be a real telltale. Varga, he's got a lot of work to do, because Fisher is looking great.
And a lot of interest in Jacob Birtwistle. He was off the back slightly, and that's interesting, because the swim is definitely not his strength. But let's see how Varga moves through his 4th into the water.
Of course, we're going reverse for this one. So they're running down the jetty. They'll be climbing out onto the pontoon through to the finish. So that throws another little spanner in the works. This is another first for them in an afternoon full of firsts, Chris.
Yeah, Fisher looks good too, doesn't he? Very, very strong form. good technique. He's got clean water, which is very, very nice on a tight circuit. It's only 300 metres. Their arms would be screaming. You've got all the blood in the legs from the run on the bike, and you've got to get that blood to the arms to get to move through the water.
And like you mentioned, where people have learned to swim at a young age and know, you know, the difference between a 2-beat, 4-beat and a 6-beat kick, you know, this is the time where you have to talk to yourself, push that blood, you know, to tell yourself to move some of that blood into your arms and change up the way you even kick in the water. And the people that have grown up and that are accustomed to this are certainly going to employ that.
Like this man right here, Richard Varga. He's moving right up, and that's all technique. That is all technique on your screen there, because the difficult thing when you can't get your breath, it's controlled breathing, your head's underwater, all you want to do is suck the air in, and you're trying to concentrate on your technique, it just falls apart, and Varga is going to move right through this field.
The field bunching up as we... Well, I tell you what, I cannot pick this. I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen now. We saw them spread out, and suddenly we've got guys 5 or 6 metres apart in terms of width, and it's going to be very, very difficult and very... well, bunched up when we get to these two. I have no idea what's going to happen now.
What can be difficult for a lot of the guys, you're suddenly in a position that you haven't been in before. If you're not a swimmer, you're not used to leading swims. So suddenly you're thrust into the water, you're leading a swim, you've got to put your head up. Usually you're following bubbles. It's a difficult spot to be in. Ryan Fish is sliding back a little bit, and the power swimmer's coming through now. That's Salzburg, the Swiss.
Salzburg, yeah. and Varga will round first, and it's going to be very hard now that he's done that and he's made it there first and cut Fisher off to see him being chased down on this one, and he could take the 5 seconds.
He's going to definitely take the 5 seconds.
That's how quickly things can change. I didn't know what was going to happen, and then suddenly Richard Varga popped up the fish and did exactly what he did in the first swim.
Look, it looks like Fish has really tacked onto the back of Salzburg's feet there, and again, you know, that's energy saving. That's cost. You know, he needs to make sure that he doesn't lose touch now. You know, he's done so well throughout the race to this point, and he has to try and either find a hip to sit on or find someone's feet, because that will, you know, essentially help drag him that little bit further forward. But coming to the end of the swim, I mean, they've got to pull themselves out of the water. I mean, it all sounds well easy, but after 18 minutes at 100%, again, running up to the finish line, it certainly makes for exciting racing.
Well, the advantage is definitely to the leader. I saw them earlier this morning checking out this swim exit. It was both Varga and Shaw, believe it or not, they were checking out this swim exit, because it's a very, very tight exit. If you're first to it, you definitely have a competitive advantage. So he set himself up to run for that exit first. He's going to stand up on land, and it's very difficult to make a move when they're in the water and you're running.
We actually saw there for a second Richard Varga stop in the water and have a look up to see exactly where he was, and that just shows you.
He's goggleless.
No goggles. He's lost the goggles,
or he's opted not to wear them.
I would say he's probably not even needed to wear them, and probably just needs to sight and know exactly where he's heading.
Everything's new, isn't it? Everything's new in Super League Triathlon. Where am I going next? What do I have to do next? They're going to go pull themselves up, and then it'll just be a run through to the finish. And it looks like if Richard Varga can hold off Andreas Salzburg, who's having a fantastic race.
A great swim.
Fantastic swim. Richard Varga first out of the water. He gets helped up. Andreas Salzburg second. We got there, that's Igor Polyansky alongside Ryan Fisher, who comes out fourth.
Bailey was there.
Alessandro Fabian came out seventh, but it looks as though Richard Varga is going to do the job. In stage 2 of the triple mix, Richard Varga wins a race, and isn't he excited about it as well? He swims people down just like he said he was going to. Andreas Salzburg finishes second, a couple of seconds back, and then it's a sprint through with Igor Polyansky finishing third, Ryan Fisher in fifth, Alessandro Fabian behind him, and Richard Murray as well, who had a bit of trouble with his bike. A lot closer this race, and you can see the pain on the faces as the 5-time world champ finishes in about 10th position, Javier Gomez. And gee, we knew the order was going to be switched up, and that is exactly what has happened as Crisanto Grajales, and there's Ben Shaw as well.
Jacob Burtwhistle, the leader from race 1, our current leader, a fair way back. He struggled in that swim.
All right, let's go down to Robbie McEwen. He'll be surrounded by some very tired men.
Richard, how did that shape up? Going into the swim, your specialty in the third leg, how much harder was that?
Yeah, it was really brutal hard, especially on the start of the race. I crashed into the Gomez Javi, and I had handlebars all across it, so I had to be really careful on the bike what I'm doing. And then I was just trying to go as hard as possible on swim.
We saw you doing quite a lot of work on that chasing pack on the bike, because you knew this was your big chance to take a 5-second bonus and open up some time.
Yeah, well, I knew this is my weapon, and I need to use it for this race, so I gave it all my gun.
And now, less than 9 minutes to go until the next race. I mean, how bad is that, having to back up so quickly?
Let's just go very quickly, get ice and some drink and get ready for another one. It's gonna be crazy.
Get ready, here it comes.
Get ready for another one. They are the words that we all wanted to hear. They put everything into it. You can see the pain faces. We saw Ben Shaw's head in his hands as well as he gave it everything. But what a race that was.
Oh, that was absolutely awesome. He called it 5 days ago. He said, look for me in race 2 of the triple mix. I'm going to shine. And I love when an athlete does that. And he's done it exactly how he said he was going to.
Mario Mola just pulling himself up off the ground too. The world champion. He's finding it too.
I haven't seen Javier Gomez look like that ever. He's in a lot of disarray. Richard Murray was my pick earlier in the day to do something special today. Hasn't really shown his hand all day, has he?
Surely anyone who's underestimated what Super League was going to bring here in the heat of Hamilton Island has been straightened out completely. We've seen, I thought it was going to bunch the field and it certainly mixed it up, but it's also spread it all the way out.
They seem to be questioning themselves. All the athletes seem to be wondering, what did we sign up for? But I tell you what, this is very exciting racing, and these athletes are certainly putting on a show.
I'm sure you're not too upset to be sitting up here. I knew you were upset before, but not anymore. Richard Varga takes it out with a 22.37. Andreas Elversberg just one behind, and then Igor Poliansky and Ryan Bailey cross the line together. Of course, he gets the 5-second bonus, so now he finishes 6 seconds ahead. Richard Varga does it, and he knew he was going to. I feel good for him that he's actually made it happen. Jake Birtwistle, who was our winner of Stage 1, finished 36 seconds back and in 13th position. Big names there as well. Siggy, well, he didn't start this one, unfortunately. Dimitri Polyansky as well, and Dan Hoy finishes 22.23. And, geez, as we as we try and cool down here in the commentary box, and certainly down there as well, we will get set for Stage 3 coming up very soon here from Hamilton Island. It's pain faces all over the place, but we are back here at Hamilton Island, and it looks so serene, doesn't it? So serene from up there.
It looks beautiful from up there, but I've never seen the athletes of the caliber I'm seeing in this much pain after 2 stages of racing. I knew it was going to be very, very tough. We talked about it in the lead up to it, but they are buckled.
Yeah, we were just saying off air before, we have never seen these athletes as buckled, that's an Australian word, as broken. As broken as they did. Javi Gomez finished in Abu Dhabi a couple of weeks ago. To me, he looked as though, because he could measure himself out a little bit, that he could keep going. But nobody looks like they could keep going, even after Stage 1, let alone Stage 2. And yet here they are for a rolling start for Stage 3. They've got to do it all again. It's going to be a bike, swim, run. And people know that if they're going to take out day 1, they need to make up a lot of time.
Yeah, you're in a position right now. You know where you're coming. You know how much time you've lost. This is the last chance to make up for that time. And it's now or never. Robbie McEwen's going to lead us up the hill, a neutral start. This guy knows how to ride a bike pretty well.
Pretty well?
Yeah,
pretty well.
Yeah.
Robbie, can you hear us down there?
Yeah, I can hear Macca's compliments coming through loud and clear. Thanks very much.
Well, there's no one around here more qualified than you. Macca, we've seen him ride up the hill, and he's not as quick as you, so you can rest easy on that one.
Well, I'm just hoping these guys are pretty tired after 2 rounds of racing. That'll be manageable to keep them under control till the top of the hill. And the mystery is when I'm going to let them go. So when they start depends on when I decide that I try to accelerate a little bit and pull over to the left. Then they're on, they're game on.
How do they look, Robbie? Are they? You seen any super tired guys? They look gone on screen.
There's one right there.
I've seen a couple there sort of puffing the cheeks, blowing a little bit. One guy looking really comfortable is Ryan Bailey, just consistently looking well recovered. Okay, they're asking me to start easy.
All right, 5 seconds, Robbie, get ready. This is your time to shine.
Well, I've just been asked by Richard Varga just to start a little bit easy, which is fine by me. This is pretty steep. I mean, television doesn't really do it justice, this part of the climb. We're doing 14% up here. I just can't imagine doing what these guys have been doing, running, swimming, then doing this. I know the call's going out of weight, so There's a lot of tired legs, a lot of tired bodies in this bunch. It's making me feel pretty good right now. Then again, I've done nothing so far today.
Richard Varga's crowding your back wheel there.
He's looking for a gun start, but they don't go until I pull off to the left. So how about you give me a countdown? When would you like me to let him go?
When would we like to let him go?
You're looking pretty good on the front there, Robbie, but I'm going to leave it up to you. I want to see that speed. Do you still have it? And I want to see the responsiveness of the athletes behind you. It's off. They're racing.
They're off. Look at you go, Robbie.
And no one's gone after him. I think he was expecting Varga to chase after him there, but they're on. They're racing. Geez, Varga's looked good all day, hasn't he? He's been on the front in race 1. He looked fantastic in race 2, winning it. He's looked spectacular. He's the only athlete that decided to come up here 5 or 6 days earlier.
He's certainly taken in the place, and well, as acclimatised as you can get in these conditions. But you're right, and him winning a race second round, I think that's going to give him another boost of confidence going into this.
Yeah, and the aggressive one, Josh Amberger, the Ironman athlete, said, "I've had enough. I'm going to get on the front, push the pace." He knows he has to move up a little bit here. He's been relatively consistent all day, Josh, but I know if he gets himself in a good position on the bike, he sees himself as a biker, he can set himself up for that swim because he's a spectacular swimmer.
We've already seen how hard it is if you don't lead out to make up any time whatsoever. As soon as you get dropped off a little bit, it's very, very hard to find a place to make up time because people know that they're going to keep pushing, and now we're in stage 3. There's nothing left. You may as well leave nothing left in the tank. You better not get dropped early.
Well, this sort of bike course, I mean, when that elastic band, just keeps stretching and stretching, particularly in these parts of the course. And
we've had a huge accident there. Who is that in the red helmet? Clutching,
That's Ben Shaw. That's Ben Shaw, 73, Ben Shaw. Geez, he's been aggressive all day and he's paid the price.
What a day for Ben Shaw. A mistake in the first stage, a very, very solid race in the second stage, and then an accident. We can see a bit of claret, a bit of blood on his elbow there, and very, very upset. He will be very, very angry at himself for making that error, but we knew someone was going to come unstuck there at the bottom of that hill.
And we all know the Swiss light that climbs, and Salversberg, who was second in the last race, he's moved right up on Josh Amberger's wheel and said, "Let's go, mate, let's go."
Yeah, look, they need that time advantage, even for tomorrow. I mean, these guys, in the back of their mind, I'm sure they're still thinking about that they can't give away too much. And like you said, Josh is definitely known for this sort of riding and sticking to the front, sticking where it's safe as well. This is the sort of stuff he wants to avoid. All the athletes know they need to. And Ben, maybe he's just been a little bit too excited in this first day.
Yeah, and Brent McMahon, an Ironman athlete, leading out the second bunch, trying to pull these two back. So you've got two of the endurance athletes, if you think of them as endurance and speed athletes, that are starting to show their hand in these later races. So let's see how it happens in the next 2 days of racing, whether those longer course athletes will come and shine.
Quite a big gap now. The two of them, Josh Amberger and Andreas Salversberg, who is coming off a big confidence boost in a very, very, very good stage 2, rocketing down into transition for the third time, and we can see that gap stretching. Obviously, we saw in stage 2 that a couple of riders, if they make it work and they work together, can hold off the chasing pack on a course such as this. They're not going to get caught up on lap 5 and 6 if they're aggressive.
And they're tired boys now, right? Now the fatigue is starting to settle in. You've been running at 180 heart rate for 45 minutes of racing. You're getting really, really tired now, so you're not... The aggressive ones are going to be more rewarded in these later races because there's not so much enthusiasm in the pack behind to shut down these gaps.
Everybody is looking to each other. Well, who's going to take it? Who's going to go and make the move? Who's going to close that gap? And that can also come back to whether the front two communicate well together, decide to work together, or whether Salzburg just says, "Look, I'm gonna sit here. You spend yourself. I'm way ahead of you already in terms of where my time sits." So.
There's something to be said for consistency across these races too, because there's a few guys who have been in the pack towards the front but not winning across the stages. We see Richard Murray around there or thereabouts, Mario Mola there or thereabouts, Christian Blumenfeld there or thereabouts. So if you lose a lot of time in one stage, win the next stage, that doesn't mean you're coming through in the points. But if you finish 7th every time, that could help you as we add it up and find out exactly who's going to win this at the end of the day.
And that's the professional experience of those guys you just mentioned. They've been on the circuit for many, many years. They know the rules. They were the ones with their hands up at the briefing. They asked all the questions. And it's a game of chess. It's a cumulative time that matters here. So you can see someone go up the road, grab that 5 seconds, but you've got 3 days of racing. The cumulative time is what's going to rank you in today's event. And Richard Murray's been there all day, as you said.
I'm more of a run out the front, first up, and get the sponsors on TV type of guy.
But you're a Hollywood type guy. You want to get on there?
Yeah, a little
show
bit.
Your face,
A little bit. Yeah, I'm pretty upset that we don't have a camera in here. Actually, no, I'm not at all. Not at all. We're sweating in here as well. It's actually warm up in the commentary box. I can't imagine what the conditions are like, but certainly the pain faces are coming out as they come down the hill just as fast as they did the first time. Josh Amberger, who, as we said, is huge in Ironman. Andreas Salversberg is doing the job there, number 69, and Brent McMahon, again, the veteran, is up there. But as we say, well, Alistair Brownlee's in 5th position as well.
He's definitely moving up through each round, isn't he? And positioning himself a little bit better and just taking his opportunity to probably, unfortunately, warm into things.
Yeah, and it's Gomez in this race, it seems to be. Javier Gomez, it seems to be a lot further back than he's been in any other race. And remember, we have the 5-second bonus at the end of lap 5, so it could be Amberger and Salversberg looking for that 5-second time bonus. They grab that at the end of lap 5. They'll have a lap to go, and that could pay big dividends for them in the overall.
Oh, hugely. When you see a lot of guys like this, if they all finish in a big group sprint, 5 seconds is a huge jump. Huge jump, and Ben Shaw obviously did that, but what an up and down day for Ben Shaw. Takes the 5-second bonus in almost a photo finish, and then finds himself losing a bit of skin about 10 minutes later.
Yeah, exactly. And not to mention not counting the number of laps in the first round on the bike.
That seems so long ago now, as we see the chase group with a lot of tarmac in front of them as the two leaders round the airport roundabout and come back along to go down back into transition once again. And yeah, it's going to be a race in two. Which of these two guys is going to pick up the 5-second bonus? Which is going to enter into the second leg, the swim?
And this is the biggest lead we've had all day, and that shows the fatigue going through everyone right now. This is the biggest lead that we've had. So they could set themselves up to win this race. If they give a little bit more time, we've still got 2 laps to go on the bike, it could be a shutdown of race 3, and that'd be interesting to see because, you give up 20 seconds here, you could move yourself all the way up there overall and win this thing. Wouldn't it be amazing? Josh Amberger, because the fatigue is set in, wins the day.
Well, that's where all the years of endurance training that he's been doing now in a shift from that short course racing into the long course, he's got a blueprint still, he's done it all his life. Triathlon has been a huge part, and like you mentioned, this is where he can tap into this now and say, well, I've been working on this part of my career, but I still do have this in the body.
Yeah, well, they're 19 seconds back. The group is 19 seconds back, so that is a lot of time. Add the 5 seconds to that. We've been seeing everyone finishing with 1 or 2 seconds of each other. You can go from 20th to top 5, so it's... and they look strong. Look very, very strong.
At the end of this lap, we're going to find out who gets the 5-second bonus. This is lap 5. One of these two boys is going to cross the line, and I'm sure that's going to be in the back of their minds, a little bonus there, because if they finish abreast of each other at the end,
look at that
5-second bonus might decide who wins this race.
Yeah, Andreas Salversberg, the face says it all. He's a Swiss, he's fantastic on the bike, a super talent, comes from a big family of triathletes. His mother is an Ironman athlete. Both his brothers are spectacular pro athletes themselves. He made his first Olympic team for Rio this year. A super talent, but he's definitely hurting. I've never seen his face pull like that before.
In Abu Dhabi, he finished 9th, Andreas Salversberg, and he was a minute 49 behind Javier, beat Henry Schumann. And in this race, he's gapped both of those athletes. Yeah. It just shows you how different this is and how much it's mixing up the established order.
Well, they're risk takers, and the bike, as we're seeing, and we're going to learn a lot over the next 3 days on how these guys are attacking the bike, but it seems being aggressive on the bike is paying off. Being up near the front, not letting yourself drift too far back, taking the chances down Stores Road, and Amberger's going to win that preem. They cross the line there. I think Amberger's grabbed that. He has. That red line there is the bike preem. So Amberger's going to get himself 5 seconds.
That could be huge towards the end of this race, but then you've got a Richard Varga who is in the chasing pack and knows that the swimmer's coming up next and has just won stage 2. He'll be fired up to chase these two boys down.
He's established himself, like you said, and this is, again, prime opportunities, and they all probably dissect the race in different ways, and Richard Varga, I mean, it's clear, where his pedigree comes from, and again, whether or not, someone like Josh, who we also know is a fantastic swimmer.
Yeah, without question. I've been very, very impressed with young Polyansky, the young Russian, Igor Polyansky. He's been up and down. He had an average first race, but right there I saw him right in the middle of that bunch. And he sat well, had the inside run. Who's that? That's Ryan Fisher. No, that's Ryan Bailey. As Robbie said, Bailey looked very, very comfortable. He does. He climbs well. I'm interested to see how he races tomorrow in the TT, but right now he looks fresh, very fresh. Geez, he rides well, doesn't he? Sits on the bike very, very well, very comfortable. They've got a downhill run at it. No, he's not lapped.
He hasn't been lapped?
No, he's definitely
We're
not
just
lapped.
wondering whether he's been lapped here because of
No
all
way.
our timings. He's covered that gap?
Yeah, I think he attacked them on the climb, did he? Was it? I'm sure I saw him in that bunch. If Ryan Bailey's been lapped, I would be very, very surprised.
So would I, but we didn't see him cover that gap.
This is coming from you who designed this. This is what you wanted.
I did want to see this, but I'd be very, very surprised. I know he climbs like a banshee. He goes up the hills like no one I've ever raced, but no, he's pulling his shoes off. Definitely not.
Well, we know that pulling your shoes off doesn't necessarily mean you finish the bike. We've seen that before.
Yeah, that was Benny Shaw.
All right, we're 3 abreast. Andreas Salversberg is going to lead us into transition. We'll go down to Robbie, who is probably just stopped sweating after his little bike ride. What's happening down there, Robbie?
Oh, boys, still sweating, still getting my breath back, but these guys have put in a massive ride. Salversberger, he's just been absolutely driving this. The focus on his face, but Ryan Bailey, his teeth are almost clenched. He wasn't breathing so hard. Helmet off, and he is just sprinting after pulling the goggles out of his race suit. Amberger, more the Ironman gait to his run, but Bailey looks driven, and he knows this is a huge chance because Varga, he's pulling in just now. He is going to close that gap down to those guys, only mid-pack, but he's already out, so Varga's on the hunt again. And we've seen technique, 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 and he just opens up the gap, closes down others. He could go 2 from 2.
Excellent points for the dive there from Andreas Salversberg, the showmanship as well. As we saw a few shoulders there between the two Spaniards in Javi Gomez and Mario Mola. No love lost there.
Yeah, it's tight in those transition, and we've seen a little bit of argy-bargy. Normally you don't notice it so much in the water, but it's jostling for position at any point in this race.
Geez, this is tough racing now. You're very, very tired. Again, I talked about it in race 2, but swimming when you're fatigued is so difficult. It is so, so difficult. And as I said, there's the guys that aren't used to leading swims. So suddenly you find yourself in a position with blue water in front of you, and you've got to lead the way, find the can yourself. It can be very difficult. But Salversberg's looking back.
His stroke rate is really good. Yeah. I mean, he looks fantastic. And we're talking about someone, Josh Amberg, who we're used to seeing lead swims. And, you know, he's drifting off the pace. So it goes to show you that, you know, there are guys that have really, you know, it's where technique comes into play here. It's that feel for the water that we talk about. And when you come from a non-swimming background, that makes it all the more difficult.
Beautiful shot there from the top of Yacht Harbour Towers as the sun sets behind the golf course here at Hamilton Island, but there's plenty of racing still to go. Andreas Salversberg looks like he's really got the eye of the tiger here. He knows he's had a confidence boost from finishing second in stage 2. He knows he can do it with these guys, and he's come out all guns blazing and gapped them on the swim. Richard Varga is in amongst these guys somewhere, so we know he's got an outboard motor, and we're worried that he's going to chase him down. There he is, rounding the buoy just there, getting held up a little bit by Ryan Bailey, and Igor Polyansky there behind him.
Blumenfeld right there.
Blumenfeld always
Alessandro
there.
Fabiani. But the good thing to see for young Salversberg on the front is he's going to set himself. He's got 2 kilometres of running to go. He's not the fastest in the field, but he's definitely not the slowest on the run. He's had a clean run at this swim, can control his breathing, can get his heart rate down if he can. And 2K to run himself into a solid position. He was second in the last race, and that's a testament to his cardio. He's one of the fittest guys, obviously, that have come here for Hamilton Island.
2 top 10s in the World Triathlon Series. Andreas Salversberg, 6 times the Swiss national champ, 16th in Rio, and he could be adding the very first day of Super League Triathlon competition to his resume, which is already very impressive. As you say, 3 brothers at Salversberg make the national team, but only one of them could be Super League champ at the end of today.
And you can just see coming into screen there.
The fish.
Oh, no. Here comes Richard Varga. He's ready as well. 1-2 in the previous stage, 1-2 in this stage as well. We can see who is in good form and who maybe hasn't been doing the training over the northern winter. And it looks like Andreas Salversberg and Richard Varga have been putting plenty of effort in, and we could see them at the pointy end of this run. Who do we see back in the pack
young Igor
that could
Polyansky.
potentially do something on the run?
Look, Richard Murray's still, you know, he's still our contender. We keep talking about him, and whether or not there's that Mr. Consistent throughout these 3 runs, but you know, we've still got Mario Mola in there, the current world champion, Javier Gomez. It's just a matter of whether these guys...
We keep talking about them, but yet...
They've never really shown any...
We haven't seen them.
We haven't seen them. We really haven't. And I was expecting a lot more from Richard Murray. I will be honest with you. I thought these dead turns would suit him a lot. He seemed to be struggling on those dead turns on the run course, but... I like to see number 11, Igor Polyansky, the young Russian. He was the leader for most of the swim at the Rio Olympic Games. He said he would like to do something really, really special here. The sport of triathlon is starting to boom in Russia, and he's one of the marquee athletes within Russia, so I'd love to see him do something special on this run.
Robbie, they're just coming out of the water. They're 3 abreast here. Take us through it.
Well, boys, we can see they come 3 abreast out of the water, but it's Varga, the fish. He has just put links into them in that last 10 metres. He just, it's like he's just flipped himself up onto shore. But will his run let him down? Because the others are so close in touch still after that swim. So he's used it to get himself back in contention, but now can he stay in front? As the boys come in, Bailey looking pretty comfortable. I'm going to go down and give him the question. Ryan, Varga's come back. Can you run him down?
Bloody oath, mate.
There we go, them's fighting words.
Oh, I'd like to see that. I'd love to see him run through. He looked quite comfortable, and as Robbie said, he looked the easiest starting this race. He looked very, very controlled. He's put himself in a great position, and Varga is not renowned for his run.
Should we translate bloody oath, mate, for everyone who doesn't live in Australia? That means absolutely I can.
Means without question.
Without question, I'll be able to run him down.
And look, he's doing just that. He's gone straight past Igor Polyansky. Salzburg now starting to show fatigue, and that's Richard Murray with the hat on in about 5th position.
Richard Murray had a huge swim there. He was 17 seconds back midway through the swim, came out with 9 seconds back. So he had a big swim there. Obviously, Richard Varga did as well. And maybe we see a Richard Murray feature towards the end of this. They've got 3 loops and then back through, and we're going to find out exactly who's going to win stage 3.
Yeah, this is, as we said, the fatigue is starting to settle. Their guys are going to start looking at cramping, those little things that can pull you up and can damage you for tomorrow's racing. He looks still good. Oh, look at Ryan Bailey.
I was going to say, he still, you know, he held his position really well. I mean, the swim's not always been his strength. It's something he's worked a lot on. And we've seen him at front packs and we've seen him miss front packs. But, you know, the fact is he kept his position throughout that swim, and still with Richard Varga. But we know he can also run well. So, look, it's so exciting, but it's so hard to tell. It's just so hard to pick as to who's going to take these leads. And
He's definitely got a winner's face on. He's got the grimace going. Richard Murray's starting to slide up. He's probably, in my opinion, and I ask you too, Emma, the best runner at the moment in the sport. He's just never been putting himself in a position where he can run through. When he does get in that position, he's winning the races. But finally in race 3, we're seeing him move up. We may see him and Bailey have a bit of a war here.
They're both comfortable looking runners, aren't they? I mean, that's the thing, you know, they look light on their feet. They look like they don't have that grimace face, and we have seen Richard, you know, certainly do well in a number of the WTS races on the run, but you know, those wins have often eluded him, and with the likes of people we keep talking about who we're yet to see.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's have a little run through your top 10 at the moment. Richard Varga is still leading there from, I think, oh no.
No, he's not.
No, he's not. Richard Murray, sorry there. Ryan Bailey, and then Richard Varga behind, and Igor Polyansky. And if you look all the way down to the timings coming out of the swim, where's Alistair Brownlee? 1 minute 15 behind.
He's a long way back, but I tell you what,
long way back.
Murray looks good now. That's the first sign of fatigue I've seen on Ryan Bailey. That the eyes went down when Murray went past. Murray's in a beautiful rhythm.
He looks like he's not seeing anything. It looks like those eyes are not seeing anything at all.
He seems to have a lot of blood on his suit. If you can see where his left hand is rubbing, and it's what he looked down at. And if you take note of the suit on his left-hand side, so I don't know if at some point if he's come down or he's
cut himself.
But
yeah.
These suits actually, I did notice, because they don't normally race with sleeves. We've got sleeves in this, so that's something different for them. And a couple of the boys we had out riding and running earlier in the week, and when they took their suits off, there was a huge amount of chafing and cutting under the arms.
Look at that. Look at the screen right there. The dual Olympic champion being passed by Richard Murray.
Lapped on the run. The dual Olympic champion, the 2-time world champion, the best known name in triathlon, has been lapped here at Hamilton Island by Richard Murray, and that is a huge moment in this sport. We knew it was going to upset the best, but I didn't expect it to upset this much.
Not quite this much.
It's amazing. We talked about it going in. We were wondering how these mixed formats were going to affect people. In the case of Alistair Brownlee, we were talking a lot about the heat. We've said if he's ever had a poor event, and there's been very few of those in his life, they've always tended to be at hot places. It was hot when they came in. Murray was very, very confident he could do something special here, and he is gapping them, and that's a sign of fitness. Look at the gap.
He looks so comfortable. I mean, his hands are relaxed, his shoulders are relaxed, his feet are just doing the talking. They're just turning over, and he doesn't even really look like he's puffing all that much. But I mean, he is a fantastic runner. You have said that time and time again. But you know, in previous rounds, he's been bunched up, and we haven't actually seen him just able to lead and take the run out by himself. And look, he's been up and coming for a very long time, and he did not have some great fortune on his side going into Rio. So hard to say, whether or not he's using that as motivation now early on in the season.
We did see him take that corner, that dead corner, very well. He went out wide and kept his speed up through the apex of the corner, where a lot of the other guys come in and have to slow down a lot and then have to restart themselves.
Yeah, he runs straight up to that rhythm again, and he looks comfortable. If you're going to take anything away from this last race, because we've got to start talking about tomorrow after this event, it's just how comfortable they look. And if anyone's impressed me, it's been that man on screen there, Richard Varga. He's looked great all day. Bailey's looked great, but Murray looks to be absolutely controlled. He's not even breathing here.
He doesn't look like he's breathing at all. He's got the 1,000-yard stare. His head's not moving whatsoever. His shoulders aren't really moving at all. He's got a very fluid running style. We saw that in Abu Dhabi, and we're seeing that here, certainly. A lot of these other guys, you can tell that they're hurting.
Yeah, contrast that to Polyansky. His eyes say it all. He is
and
keen
his arms,
to get to the
hands,
finish.
elbows. It's certainly fatigue is building on him, and he's just trying to will his legs that little bit further to keep up with those boys. But yeah,
like
it shows the pedigree. Jog. Yeah, he does. He looks absolutely phenomenal.
Doesn't look like my Sunday jogs, I'll tell you that for nothing. But it looks like Richard Murray is going to do the job here in stage 3. And how good has it been? 3 different winners, 3 different top 10s as well, as we see people giving it all early. A guy with experience like Murray waiting for his time to strike and then really pouncing on that. And a huge swim and a huge run at the end of what has been 9 legs across about an hour and a half.
Well, remember, it's a big gap. It's time that matters here. He's got to at least have 10 to 15 seconds. He's going to grab the 5-second win bonus. He's been right there all day. This could take him all the way to the win.
The battle for the podium places in this stage is... Oh, he's having a bit of a chat too.
I feel great, he says. Remember, Rich, it's time that matters, mate. And I'd love to see him push up. He's really starting to squeeze it. The fatigue is setting in on everyone else.
Isn't he one of the great characters of the sport, though? If we could have 25 Richard Murrays, it'd be fantastic. There's a lot of back chat. There's a lot of chat amongst them. He's got a big mouth. He flipped off an official, to put it as nicely as I possibly can. Near an official, sorry. We heard that already earlier.
Got a lot of time for this guy. Well done, Richard.
Richard Murray doing the job. High fives as well. Big smiles across the South African's face. The veteran has done it here in stage 3, and he's very happy about it as well. He's got enough energy for then. It's in a sprint between Richard Varga and Ryan Bailey, and Richard Varga's going to do the job too, and hasn't he had a fantastic effort?
Yeah, what a day. And Igor Polyansky, the young Russian kid, well done.
Oh, he looks like he's given it all too. Mario Mola will come in 6th position. Alessandro Fabian behind him.
Matt Hauser, the young junior in the white suit, the Aussie, the Oceania champion.
That's a huge effort from him. And a big sprint late on from Brent McMahon.
Man with Dimitri Polyansky, Crisanto Gajales. Coming close now.
Ryan Fisher there as well.
Oh, that's Javier Gomez. Who would have ever picked Javier Gomez to be that far back? He has not really shone all race. We're going to see in the overall, but he hasn't really made the impact I thought he would.
Let's go down to Robbie right now. I think he's got the winner.
Richard Murray, the longer it went on today, the better you got. Totally in control in that race. You ran down the leaders, and now you don't have to back up again in 10 minutes. I mean, how are you feeling about the whole day, all 3 rounds?
Oh, the last thing was at the end, I was like, don't go too fast, don't go too fast. But stoked with the swim. I think it's like the more the swimmers get, the better I get in the swim. Funny enough, I had a shocker on the first one. And yeah, super stoked. I hope, I don't know if I'm getting first for the day, I'm not sure, but yeah, it was great, good pace. Just hung in there on the bike, and the bike course was awesome, eh? Love to see what speed. We did like 360 watts average on the bike for half an hour, so that's some proper riding.
Yeah, that is some not just the riding, the swims and the runs, but you're straight into the ice bucket. We've been talking about how hot it's been here. What effect did that have, do you think, this afternoon on all your fellow athletes?
Yeah, you know what, I think the icing's on the cake, but it was pretty, after the first one, I didn't realize it was going to be so bloody hot here. And I mean, the people are used to it, they're like, oh yeah, that's not so bad, but from South Africa, there's a big difference. We've got no humidity, and yeah, the boys were all over the place. There was a big crash, I think, on the last bike course, and yeah, it was wild out there. Even someone, I think, dismounted a lap early on the bike, so there's some wild stuff going down today.
Yeah, pretty hard to get used to all the formats, but now you've got to recover and get ready for a time trial and uphill finish tomorrow morning. So any fear there?
No, I think plenty of Coronas tonight, and that'll do the trick. Yeah, some beer, some bread, maybe good German bread or something like that, and we'll be good to go tomorrow.
Well, guys, Richard Murray is absolutely on a high, but why wouldn't you be with a race win like that?
If I knew that beer and bread could make you a good triathlete, I'd be out there right now.
You'd be a champion.
I would be a champion. I would be out there. There's
Look
some
at
very...
Matt Hauser.
He has given everything, and we are still waiting at the end of that interview for Alistair Brownlee to finish.
Yeah, he was starting his last lap. Starting his last lap. He's found this day very, very tough indeed. Very tough. The heat, the pace, everything.
I don't think there's a single athlete out there that hasn't found this one of the toughest days in their career. Well, this is tough. This is a little hard to watch.
Yeah, who would have ever thought that? Alistair Brownlee. It's a tough day for him. We've got 2 more days of racing. This is not the end. He's just going to set himself with some points. Not scored a lot of points. We've seen a few DNFs today, so he's going to complete the course, which will move him up. But tomorrow's event will suit him a lot.
Well, he knows that at this point, his points are out the window. So there's no real need to finish quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Here we see Richard Murray with the 5-second bonus. He finishes 13 seconds then ahead of Richard Varga, who finished very strongly to hold out Ryan Bailey by 1 second. Crisanto Grajales rounds out the top 10. Great to see Matt Hauser, a young Aussie wildcard, in there in 7th. That'll be a huge confidence boost for him going into the second 2 days. But there are some pained faces out there. Terenzo Bozzoni there, Josh Amberger, who really gave it everything early on. He's got a smile for the camera. And Mario Mola, who just looks a little more composed than the rest of them. He's been consistent all day.
He's been right there all day. I like seeing the oldest guy in the field there, Brent McMahon, finishing 8th there. He's been shining all day. I'm keen to see where he ends up in the mix. Mario Mola, very, very
He's
tight.
always smiling, though, isn't he? Always smiling.
That was a forced smile. It was definitely a fatigue smile. There's Crisanto Grajales, who Alistair said got in his way in race 1. Alistair Brownlee on screen.
He'll know, as we said, he'll know that he doesn't need to finish this well. He knows that the points are not in the bag, the points are done, and he's got 2 more days of racing. So he'll finish and go back to the drawing board, and I have no doubt that we'll see some of the best of Alistair Brownlee coming up over the next 2 days. Yeah, he won't have taken this well.
No, he's a fighter. I've seen this guy do amazing things, and as you said, I think he would have shut that down. I'm going to finish where I finished. Time doesn't matter. I'm out of this race 1. Tomorrow's a course for me, the equaliser. I ride very well. I climb very well. Let's lay it out tomorrow.
As he takes a seat down alongside his long-time rival, Javier Gomez, it'll be... yes, back to the drawing board, asking a few questions. And tomorrow we've got a very interesting day, because in less than 12 hours, these guys are going to be out there on the airport. But before we go any further, Robbie McEwen, you've got Alistair.
Alistair Brownlee, that has been a pretty tough day out by all accounts.
Yeah, I just haven't had the arms or legs from the first bit, to be honest. Yeah, just struggled. It was always going to be a big ask, I suppose. But yeah, I think I've just felt extra especially bad and just never been able to get on the front foot. And on that last bit, I actually got a stitch. I literally don't think I've had a stitch since I was doing cross country and like when I was 12 or something. You know, never ever. It's so weird. I've never had that problem in my life. It's strange.
So you think these really short, intense efforts are very hard to get into that groove so early in the season and coming out from England like you have. So, you know, there's a few things up against you, but tomorrow's another day and different formats. Are you looking forward to it, or a bit of trepidation?
Yeah, definitely. I think I should feel slightly better as it goes on, but obviously I've got to feel a lot better to be competitive. It goes quite a long way off today. But yeah, you know, I was aware that there was no point pushing too hard on that last one, and it was worth you know, not really putting myself in a hole for tomorrow.
Well, plenty more chances, and I know one thing's for sure, there's about 23 other guys not willing to write you off.
Hopefully, yeah. But you never, well, after today, I don't know, I won't put money on me.
There you go. The Olympic champion gets a stitch, making us all feel a little bit better about ourselves. You're watching what has been a very interesting triple mix here from Hamilton Island, paradise off the coast of Queensland.
Some fantastic shots there, and it all makes it look very, very calm and placid when you show it in slow motion, but it was anything but that. What a 3 stages we had, and we can reveal now the points table. Richard Murray has won day 1 on accumulated time. Richard Varga with his win and second placing, finishing second. Ryan Bailey, the Aussie, the top Aussie. Mario Mola, consistency third. Javier Gomez in 6th, so it just shows you consistency is key. Andreas Salversberg there behind Ryan Fisher. Jake Birtwistle did well after his first win. Josh Amberger there in 15th. Matt Hauser, what a finish for him as well. He takes 6 points in 13th. Henry Schumann didn't feature much, but obviously, you know, he rounds it out with 1 point. Dan Hoy, Cam Dye, Ben Shaw, after an up and down day, and down the bottom, can you believe it? Alistair Brownlee finishes with a point in 22nd, and Siggy Ragnarsson, who had a difficult day out, finishes in 23rd overall. What a weekend it's going to be. I'm super excited. Did you expect that? Now, I mean, I'm sure you're going to tell me, Chris, oh, yeah, I knew this was going to happen, but did you know this was going to happen?
That was beyond expectation. I don't think anybody could have expected what we just saw on screen there. You know, Alistair Brownlee not showing up the front as much as we thought he would. Jacob Birtwistle taking a race win, and Richard Murray doing what actually I did say he would do.
We look at the highlights from the day, and it seems like such a long time ago. What an emotional roller coaster we've had as we kicked off, and Richard Varga was first out of the water, stamping his authority in stage 1. Ben Shaw making an error too, and that was just part of a really tough day for him, off and on, and he only noticed after he'd racked his bike.
In general, I just think Ben Shaw just didn't concentrate enough on the day. He made some very silly errors, and unfortunately, they really did not pay off for him.
Jake Birtwistle taking the opening win, and wasn't that fantastic as they tried to cool down, and that was the first of a lot of upset faces of Alistair Brownlee as they went off for the rolling start, and Ben Shaw attacked. He was angry.
Yeah, Ben Shaw got his 5-second bonus there. He got off the front. This is where Bailey started to show his hand in race 2. He moved up through the bike course, set himself up, and that set him right up that podium position. Fisher led that one into the water. He moved backwards very rapidly in that second swim.
Look, it was a changing of the guard all day, and I think that's where we've been most excited, not being able to tell who and where anyone was going to finish all day round.
Varga was super happy with his effort there. Andreas Salversberg finished second, and then it wasn't long before Robbie McEwen saw them up the hill. Richard Varga starting off, but it wasn't long before the first of what I assume is going to be a few accidents, and it was Ben Shaw. Ben Shaw dropping the bike. But this is where the fatigue came in. We saw it during the racing. The fatigue started to settle. The confidence of the athletes that were starting to come through showed. And this gentleman on screen there, the young Swiss, Andreas Salversberg, really shone in this race. He did. He ended up finishing maybe in 6th or 7th, but that was the dive of a man who was very confident coming into that after a second place in stage 2. But after that, it was all Richard Murray and Ryan Bailey. And then after that, it was just Richard Murray. Yeah.
Well, taking out that 3rd round and overall for the day.
100%. It was a fantastic day's racing. And Robbie McEwen, I think, has Ryan Bailey down in transition.
I am here indeed with Ryan Bailey, and he looked in control all day. But Ryan, going into that final run, you said yourself, I'm going to run Varga down, I am going to catch him, which you did. But then we saw Murray in front, and we weren't sure what happened, but something went down, didn't it?
Yeah, I sort of fell around one of the U-turns, obviously, with the shoes full of water, and it was my own silly mistake, and yeah, stacked it and lost a bit of composure. But yeah, that's part of racing, and had to pick myself back up and get back into the moment.
Well, 3rd after day 1, looking good going to day 2. All the best for the next day.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that time trial tomorrow. I think it's going to be massive time gaps, and obviously finish up 1-3 hill. It's going to be spectacular.
Thank you.
All right, we're running out of time as we draw the curtain on the triple mix, and now we look forward to the equaliser tomorrow. How good is that going to be? Quick thought.
I can't wait to see the equaliser. It's going to set the entire race up.
Look, very exciting. Like you said, we're going to see some of these young cyclists who are going to take control and hopefully do some damage before the afternoon.
A time trial in the morning, a pursuit in the afternoon. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with more Super League Triathlon, and isn't it going to be fantastic?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to present the trophies to our champions of day one of the Super League Triathlon Hamilton Island 2017. Presenting the triple mix trophies today, Mr. Ian Thorpe, 5-time Olympic gold medalist and Australian sporting legend. And presenting the champagne, Mr. Leonid Boguslavsky, co-founder and vice president of Super League Triathlon. In third place for the triple mix at Super League Hamilton Island 2017, number 39 from Australia, the West Aussie, Ryan Bailey. Ryan has his trophy. In second place for the Triple Mix Super League Hamilton Island 2017, wearing number 12, the gun swimmer, Richard Varga. Now time for today's winner. He's wearing the 07 and he's the winner of the very first triple mix at the Super League Triathlon. Let's turn it up a notch for the South African, Richard Murray. And no podium, of course, is complete until the champagne has been handed out. So Leonid Boguslavsky, he'll do the honours, hand out the champagne and start to prepare yourselves for the showers. That's if these boys have got the energy left to get them open after a great day's of racing. Bailey's gone already, taking an early lead. So now it's time, away you go. Ladies and gentlemen, one last big round of applause for our first three overall today. The Triple Mix Super League Triathlon Hamilton Island. We'll see you all again tomorrow morning. Time trial.
Ha ha ha.